Harry Miller, Mark Littlewood, Ralph Schulhammer. And the music stopped. Good morning and welcome to the Mike Graham Show. It is Monday morning and it's 7 a.m. and once again we are back for all of your news, all of your views and all the opinions you don't hear anywhere else. It's Monday, the 12th of January. I'm delighted to say, as she was here for the very first show on the Mike Graham Show live on breakfast last Monday, Emma Wolf has returned. Emma, very good morning to you.
Back for more punishment.
Thank you so much indeed for coming up and getting here so early. Bizarrely, it's actually warmed up. It's 10 degrees in London, so it's rather nice. We've got a whole panoply of stories to get to you. We've had a load of busy things going on over the weekend. Obviously, Iran is on the front pages. They're killing people by the hundreds over there. There's a picture on the front pages of a young woman who was shot in the back of the head. Strangely, there don't seem to be any pro-Iranian marches going on in Britain. You know, the people who are basically in sort of defiance of the Israeli government all seems to have gone very quiet. Yes, there are some people marching around in favour of getting rid of the Iranian government, but they're not the pro-Palestinian lot. It's a different lot. But there are other stories around as well. We're going to talk about the police, the West Midlands police on the front of the Times, being urged to sack their police chief after that Maccabee Tel Aviv scenario, because of course it now looks like his continued employment is completely and utterly untenable. Meanwhile, the Metropolitan Police is back in the news because they're saying, Sir Mark Rowley is saying that all these doom mongers who say that crime is up in London are actually wrong, because crime is down, murder is down. Yeah, well, murder might be down, but doesn't mean that people aren't frightened to walk around the city, because that is the main story. The other great story of the day is on the front page of The Sun, and we're going to talk about this, Emma, aren't we? Apparently, Marlon Brando could be the father of one of Michael Jackson's kids. Believe it or not, that's extraordinary. Also, they've got one about the BBC paying out £63 million for a taxi service to ferry all of their people around. We'll be talking about the BBC. Peter Mandelson was on it as well. So much to do. Lots of your messages coming in already. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to the Mike Graham Breakfast Show. Welcome to week 2 of the most surprising and dynamic breakfast show on the planet. Dolly Dolphin says, morning, Mike and Emma. Let's get it on. And let's get it on, indeed. Emma, very good morning to you. Shall we start with the police? Because of course, there are pictures of this poor girl on the front pages who appears to have been a fashion student, Rabina Aminian. We'll talk about Iran in a minute. But let's go closer to home. Let's talk about domestic politics, because this story has now been running about the West Midlands Police and the disgraceful behaviour of their chief constable in banning Israeli fans from coming to Birmingham because, you know, they were basically muscled into it by the Muslim community. This all started in November and it's still going.
This was back in November, and we've seen over the past week or two really, really kind of weak testimony from this chap, the Chief Constable, no less, of West Midlands, Craig Guilford. What we've also seen, Mike, I think, is an absolute lack of accountability, or lack of leadership from our Home Secretary.
Yes.
I know it's not within her power to remove him. She's not really come out and said anything. She said woolly things, flabby things about, oh, it's under review.
Yeah.
You know, did you see him squirming at those select committees?
I mean, where he told lies basically to Parliament. And also, did she not say a few weeks ago that she didn't have time to get involved in it and she wasn't sure whether she could have changed the policy because the government doesn't get involved in operational matters? But it turned out at the weekend that she did know, and she was told.
And he was doing the same thing. He was saying it didn't come across my desk. Well, I'm sorry, mate. You're paid that much. You are responsible for this. Secondly,
this is the new Keir Starmer excuse, isn't it? Oh, it didn't come across my desk, so I didn't see it.
He was absolutely squirming, that man, and he was being held. He was being grilled on this. And I think now the time, as you say, it's gone on and on. I think now the time has come for a statement of some show of leadership from the Home Secretary. She can demand whoever is in control of it to get rid of him. Or just have some accountability, some explanation. Because at the moment they're changing their story every 5 minutes.
But the pressure is building, as it always does with this government, and they always do butter, don't they? Because now we've got according to the Times, senior MPs preparing to tell the Home Secretary to sack the Chief Constable of West Midlands Police after concluding that he did mislead Parliament over the decision to ban Israeli fans from the match in Birmingham. Members of the Home Affairs Select Committee are understood to be unanimous in their disappointment at the evidence given by the force, with several believing it had retrospectively gathered evidence to suit their decision making.
Exactly.
Well, that's actually called, it's called lying, and it's called a conspiracy to change the facts after the event.
What are the facts? Let's have all the facts. Let's have all the dates and the documentation. And what's underlying all this is a far, far more disturbing, kind of scenario where actually political interference or political motivation was in charge of really, really, sensitive operational issues. It's a scandal.
And also, we discovered, did we not, at the weekend also, because this story's got so many different layers to it, that the recruitment process, I believe, which appointed this guy as the Chief Constable, included the addition of somebody on the recruitment sort of board, if you like, from the local mosque.
Exactly.
So, one of the Muslim leaders who, as far as I'm concerned, doesn't appear to have any interest in why or who becomes the Chief Constable of West Midlands Police. Why is there a Muslim mosque leader on a recruitment panel?
Exactly. And this links in really, really kind of interestingly with what Robert Jenrick's been saying over the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. He was talking about the police basically losing control of the streets across the UK. Basically being in hock to Islamists who are putting pressure on him. Putting pressure on them, putting pressure on our police forces, and they're not making decisions based on safety and public order. They're making decisions based on local community pressures. That's not acceptable.
Should we check Shabana Mahmood's a Twitter account and see what she's been tweeting about? Because, of course, she's not only the Home Secretary, she's also a Member of Parliament for Birmingham Ladywood, right? So she's in that neck of the woods, right? She hasn't tweeted for 4 days, believe it or not. And what she said 4 days ago was, we are going further to intercept, detain and arrest the people smugglers who bring illegal migrants to our shores. Duh, really? This is exactly why we are implementing new laws with powerful offences to dismantle these vile gangs faster than ever before and cut off their supply chains. La 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 la. A load of old cobblers.
She was saying that 1 month ago, 2 months ago, 3 months ago. Do you remember all her little 5-minute videos that she made at the taxpayers' expense? Walking purposefully along the street, talking about some
I'm going to be tougher than anyone's ever been.
And the men shuffling in and out with their blue plastic bags. I mean, this is we don't have control of our borders. No. We have control of our streets.
Well, we've got Keir Starmer, right, busily trying to talk about sending British troops to Greenland to protect them from America. By the way.
And Ukraine.
Yeah, and Ukraine, right? We've only got sort of, the ability to send 7,000 to each place, and that would mean we don't have any left here to patrol our own.
No boots left.
So let's patrol Greenland and Ukraine, but let's not bother patrolling Dover or the places where people are coming here to ruin the country, right? That's fine. That's all right. He also, they've gone completely radio silent, the Labour government. Starmer hasn't tweeted, right, since 3 days ago when he did that thing that he was community noted on, saying that, they're scrapping the two-child limit, and that's why apparently they're putting money back in people's pockets. But they're not. It's all lies. We'll be talking about Nigel Farage and what he said about that in a minute. But let's talk about crime as well, because the Times has got another good story. Metropolitan Police boss Sir Mark Rowley hitting out. This is a thing.
I don't trust that man.
This has become a left-right thing, hasn't it?
That man.
Because people on the right will tend to say, actually, London has never been more dangerous, right? Ordinary, sort of sensible people will know that that's true, but the left are obsessed with saying, "Oh, no, 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 it's
really
much safer now than it used to be." And in fact, I mean, I saw John Simpson, that sort of demented old foreign correspondent from the BBC. He's about 150 years old, right? Do you remember? Anyway, he reckons, it's very much safer in London now. This one from Sir Mark Rowley, who says last year was one of the safest in terms of serious violent crime in the capital, and he criticised commentators who shared false claims online.
Do you know?
I mean, is he living in the real world, this guy?
Well, of course he's not, because he gets a private car everywhere. So he's not living in the real world.
Yeah.
Is Sadiq Khan living in the real world? No, he's not, because he gets armoured cars everywhere. They're not living in the real world.
Yeah.
Every single Londoner who's ever had their phone stolen, their car smashed up, their child followed.
Yeah, I've had both of those. Thank you.
Their best friend followed or raped or whatever. Yeah. We all know we are living in this city.
Shoplifting alone has put the crime up like that.
Every single day. The reason that the numbers are down is because when there is a crime, either people don't bother to report it, or the police just give you a crime reference number and nothing happens.
I mean, talk to the people who run neighbourhood shops in wherever it is you live in London or wherever it is in the country, right? I go into my local co-op, little small kind of metro co-op, right? You have to ring a bell if you want to buy a bottle of wine.
Exactly.
Because it's all behind locked doors, right? Things like sausages are locked away. Meat is locked away. You have to ask,
you have to get a security tag taken off, because people are just walking in and literally taking what they want.
Yeah.
Security guards won't tackle them because they don't want to get stabbed.
Right.
The whole thing. I mean, to say that crime is down, no, these people are not living in.
It's pathetic, absolutely pathetic. But also, they've now turned it into a political football. All people want is to be able to live their lives relatively safely, be able to let their children go out and play, let their children go to school on their own, come home on their own, often in the dark. But they're not doing it because it's bloody dangerous. And as I say, the shoplifting crime, the watch crime, it might well be that there are fewer murders, but that doesn't make it a safe city, because people aren't frightened of being murdered. Mostly they're frightened of being robbed, or frightened of being hit over the head or something, or raped or sexually assaulted. Most people are not frightened of being murdered because that's very rare. But that doesn't mean that crime isn't down.
And Mike, people have adapted their behaviour. I know there are some old ladies who live near us, and they always talk about heating and eating and all of that stuff. They don't go out after dark because it's not safe.
No, of course.
In central London, it's not safe. So they've adapted their behaviour. And this is what happens when you pander. Oh, this person's got mental health issues. No, they're a violent rapist, and they should be, I mean, we need to crack down on crime, and instead the police are basically policing social media and doing.
Yeah, well, how about that? Which moves us nicely onto the Walking Contradictions first message of the day. There, it says, Keir Starmer hasn't posted on X because he wants to ban it. I mean, this is true, right? This is another ridiculous situation that happened over the weekend. Keir Starmer's government claiming that they want to ban X, right? And they say they're talking to Australia and Canada to sort of coordinate the ban. Elon Musk, meanwhile, has stuck two fingers up and gone, good luck with that. And of course, Canada came out and said, actually, we're not thinking of banning X. I mean, how pathetic. And everybody knows he doesn't want to ban X because it's dangerously, using children and sexual images. He wants to ban it because it's anti-Labour and it's quite right-wing, and he gets a terrible time on it.
Yeah, he gets a terrible time on it. As you say, the last time he ventured onto X, he got community noted. Let's be clear about this. He's using the whole online pornography and violence and manipulation of images via Grok, which Grok, the AI tool on X, does do. Is he serious? He's trying to ban X. The internet is awash with violent, explicit images of porn, of young children, of women. Get control of that. Don't try and go after Elon Musk in a sort of personal vendetta. It's so transparent.
Also, I mean, even people who are not necessarily that right-wing, I've been talking to over the weekend, who say if Starmer manages to successfully ban a social media platform, that will be the final straw, because it will prove beyond any shadow of a doubt that this man is an authoritarian. He's not a Democrat. He's interested in clamping down on people's freedoms, and he'd rather lock you up for something you tweet than for something you do.
But also the funny thing is, and let's just laugh about this, if they ban us on X, we'll all go over to that namby-pamby Blue Sky.
Oh yeah,
It's hell.
and make it
'Cause
Black Sky.
Black
You know,
Sky. Is anyone still on that thing?
bring the
But if
bring
you
the
go over there, it's like this collection of fluffy little
soy boys.
snowflakes.
Yeah.
We could all go over there like a bully mob and
Yeah.
just kind of make that
I had
up.
a guy have a go at me the other day on Twitter because we're going to do a plank of the day of a Labour MP, right?
Yeah.
Who spent some ludicrous amount of money, like 230,000 quid on his expenses, right? And he was having a go at Nigel Farage. And this guy, it turns out, in his biog, said that he was a part-time drag artist. I'm like, great, okay, then good for you, mate. I don't really care what you are, but why do you have to tell people that? You know,
Exactly.
part-time drag artist. Well done, congratulations. We've got some great messages coming in from all over the place. People in Australia watching, people in Thailand, people in the Philippines. Do tell us where you are, and we will give you a shout out.
It is.
Yes. Will Geddes actually messaged me. He's in the Seychelles diving. He's watching. So, Will, very good morning to you. He was, interestingly enough, drawing my attention. I don't know if you saw this piece at the weekend about when the Americans went in to get Maduro in Venezuela last week.
Yeah.
They used some weird new weapons, which apparently completely like wiped out the opposition. And it was some kind of sound bomb, you know, so that those kind of science fiction movies where you see people kind of going. Yeah, where you can't read, you can't hear anything, you can't see anything. You're kind of, they're firing all these weird.
That's the thing.
Neon,
Trump knows what he's doing.
Yeah,
we don't.
Yeah, absolutely right. There's some great Trump videos that we're going to show you a little bit later on. Shall we have a look at a couple of videos? Because as far as the news is concerned, the West Midlands police in crisis. I'm going to read you this. You see it at the bottom of the screen. Deadly massacre in Iran. Did Marlon Brando father Jacko's kid? We're going to talk to Emma about getting kids off smartphones as well, because that's a big one for you. 5-year wait for hip operations on the NHS. That's from the Daily Record in Scotland. And the EU demands Farage clause in talks over the Brexit reset. They're trying to basically skewer the pitch so that if, as they do believe, obviously, Nigel Farage wins the next election, if Starmer gets some kind of, EU reset going, that we won't be able to reverse it. I mean, this is how, kind of criminal and unreal the EU are. They don't operate like a democracy. They operate like gangsters.
Yeah, but it shows how terrified Starmer and the EU are, how they are already openly 2 years, 3 years out. They're basically admitting, reform are going to get in. Farage is going to be the next prime minister. They're terrified.
Right, absolutely right.
Now, for what happens when Farage comes in and rips it all up.
Yeah, let's have a look at Peter Mandelson, because he, amazingly, right, yesterday, Laura Kunsberg interviewed him. Peter Mandelson, who was fired from his job as ambassador to the United States of America back end of last year because of his rather unusually elongated friendship with Jeffrey Epstein. Even after he was a convicted paedophile, Mandy kept sending him notes and love notes and, we love you, Jeffrey, and all this kind of stuff, right? He was interviewed yesterday on the BBC. And here's what he said about the fact that he didn't know anything that was going on because he was gay.
Lost your job as ambassador because of your friendship with the convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. You've said many times you regret that you were close to him. But there's a question many people have. It was one thing to be friends with him in the early 2000s, quite another to keep your friendship going with him when it was clear and he had a conviction for abusing young women. Why did you stick with him?
Well, it was a most terrible mistake on my part. I believed the story he told in 2008 in his first indictment in Florida. I accepted his story, and I wish I hadn't. I gave my support to somebody because I believed what he was telling me, and it was misplaced loyalty. But I just have to say this to you. While it's had the most calamitous consequences for me, the crux of this is not me. The crux of this is not the friendship I had 25 years ago with Jeffrey Epstein. The crux of this is that so many hundreds of young women were completely trapped, powerless in a system that did not listen to what they had to say. I didn't hear their voices. Other people didn't hear their voices. They were disempowered within that system. I certainly had not.
But you did have the knowledge that he had a conviction.
Yes, and I believed...
He had a conviction for abusing women.
And I believed his story.
Over a court.
And I believed I believed his story and that of his lawyer, who spent a lot of time trying to persuade me of this, because I did go into it, that he had been falsely criminalised in his contact with these young women. Now, I wish I had not believed that story.
Yeah, I wish you hadn't believed that story either. But there we are. You know, he's so gullible, Peter Mandelson, isn't he? Believes anything that he's told. And I mean, if he honestly, I mean, we've all seen inside the mansion of Jeffrey Epstein, full of pictures of half naked and sometimes fully naked young girls, you know, sort of sculptures of obviously a very sexual nature. I mean, there's no way he's got the balls of steel to go on a television show and actually say, oh, I didn't really notice what was going on. Nobody really told me because I was gay. Seriously.
Don't use that old thing. I don't even know actually why he's being interviewed on the BBC.
No.
That he's not even apologising. He's not even, is the word contrite? He's not even contrite.
No, he didn't say sorry, did he?
He doesn't say sorry.
No.
How would you feel if you were one of Jeffrey Epstein's victims? And the fact, and I don't mean to cast gender aspersions, but do you really think two single men having fun, I don't care whether they're gay or straight, didn't discuss their sexual proclivities in any way, or who they were seeing, or introducing each other to potential dates?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't buy it.
No, I don't buy it either. And as you say, the BBC should never have allowed him on. And in fact, a lot of people were commenting yesterday saying that if this had been some right-wing character who had been associated with Epstein, there's no way there would have been a rehabilitation on the cards. I wouldn't be surprised if Mandelson is kind of angling for a job at the BBC. You know. Yeah, because the BBC are on the front page of the Sun this morning as well. This is a good one. Taxi for the BBC. Apparently, BBC bosses are going to splash out up to £63 million on taxis, despite saying they have to save 150 million quid on shows like Strictly and The Traitors. Nice work when you get it. I mean, poor Emma has to come into this show on a bicycle because, you know, we don't provide taxis. Not yet, anyway. I mean, we might do in the future when things really take off, you know, but at the moment, I'm afraid you get here under your own steam.
For starters, Talk provided cabs at 4 a.m. and I cycled. So it's not poor Emma. I love my bike. I love cycling.
Yeah.
Right? If you offered me a limo, I would take it.
Okay.
I like to cycle.
Fair enough.
Get that clear. Secondly, in the real world, and I've worked in the media for a few years, in the real world, people have had their taxis, like nowadays, for people who aren't in the media, this is not a thing. We don't get any more. We don't get long, expensive liquid lunches, and we don't get taxis everywhere. Right? If a presenter needs to get in at 3 a.m, yes, they get a taxi in. They don't then get a taxi back at midday.
No.
They get home on trains or tubes or whatever. The BBC, and someone in this article says, you know, they're basically using taxpayers' money as an open tap.
Yeah.
There's always money for cabs, for top presenters, for salaries, for eye-watering bonuses for the kind of top execs at the BBC.
Yeah. Well, do you know when Susanna Reid worked on BBC Breakfast, when they moved to Manchester because everybody had to move en masse to Salford Quays, right? She refused to go. Do you know what they used to do? They used to take her in a taxi every morning. They used to take her a taxi every afternoon the night before to the station, first class train to Manchester.
Yeah.
Then she would do the show in the morning. Then she would come back so that she could get her daughter out of school and spend time with her daughter. Back in a taxi, back on a train, back again. So they did it every day, twice a day, and we paid for that.
Absolutely. And once again, you know, license fee payers' money is treated like an open tab. Meanwhile, pensioners, people who actually really rely on TV, you know, and are really worried about things like the license fee going up. No one's worrying about them. There's always money for the things that they want.
I know.
No, 63.
Such a waste of money.
Such a waste of money.
Taxpayers Alliance have been good here, and we talk to them quite a lot. We'll talk to William Yarwood this week.
Yeah,
he'll be in with us as well. One-way trip Salford to Oxford was charged £484, right? Ruislip to central London, £288 one way. The hell are they using? Guys with Rolls Royces.
Starters, they're probably not using Uber or anything like that. They're probably using black taxis. Secondly, we all know that you could get a train for far less than that.
Of course you can, if you can find one, luckily enough, that's running.
Station that works.
Yeah, I know. It is extraordinary. Let's talk about the story that is very close to your heart, and it's all about children's smartphones. There's a couple of stories today. Obviously, Kemi Badenoch yesterday came out and said that she admitted that she's got her own daughter a smartphone, but she's not allowed to use it on certain internet sites. She just uses a phone. And she says under 16 should not be allowed to have social media at all. Similarly, on the front page of the Telegraph today, screen time damages toddlers' ability to speak, says the first British study of its kind. They found out that the average 2-year-old watches more than 2 hours of screen time television or something every day.
Yeah, you know what, Mike? That is actually an underestimate. I see toddlers who have like a phone thing affixed to their pram a little screen, you know, like a holder, like you have there on in your car.
Yeah.
And they have a phone holder on the pram and they're watching. And 2 hours a day, it's more than that. There are children in my son's school, 4 or 5-year-olds, who are non-verbal.
Wow.
Who get to school, start school in reception and cannot communicate. And
That's amazing.
We're doing. They're not looking, they're not using their brains, they're not developing their language. It's a crucial time. I think we're catching up. You guys all laughed at me a year ago, 2 years ago, when I started saying we need to ban the internet. We actually need to ban smartphones.
Yeah.
Of course, teenagers will get hold of them. They'll borrow their big brothers, big sisters. But it needs to be a thing where children and young people don't have smartphones. It's damaging their mental health. It's damaging their human.
But is this? And I know
their physical health and mental health. Why do you think ADHD, depression, anxiety? Why is it soaring? Because people are literally in their bedroom staring at a screen.
And, you know, is it not, though, and you and I have had this conversation before, is it not the responsibility of the parents to make sure that their children are raised properly? I'm not confident that the government could actually clamp down on a family, say, like you, come to you and say, you know, as your son gets to the age of, I don't know, 10. I mean, we sort of always looked on it as once the child goes to secondary school, you might want them to have a phone because they tend to be going on their own to school now. You're not taking them every day.
Give them a brick phone. Give them a texting phone. They can say where they are.
Right. But I'm just nervous of any government kind of that wants to try and clamp down. I mean, look at Starmer, desperate to ban X, right? He would use any excuse to stop you from accessing information that might be damaging to him.
I agree. I don't want Starmer deciding what social media sites can run and what social media sites we can go on. But I do think we will look back on this era as a profoundly, profoundly damaging time for children and young people.
Yes.
And I mean it. I absolutely mean it. And children, even in Australia, young people have been saying it's a relief. And since the ban came in a few weeks ago, they're saying it's a relief. I don't need to be on social media. I don't need to be on WhatsApp with my friends all the time. I can go and see them.
Right.
Go and meet up with them.
And also go and have actual experiences. You know, don't go on TikTok and look at somebody who's, I don't know, riding a horse. Go and ride a horse.
Go and ride a horse.
Take your kids and teach them how to ride a horse. You know, take them out and let them play football. Let them, you know, scoot around on bikes. You know, let them have experiences.
Why do you think young people can't turn up to interviews because they're so anxious because they don't know how to talk? They ever tried to buy a coffee off a young kind of barista and they can barely communicate. They can barely make eye contact. This is really damaging. You are right. Absolutely. Primarily, it's the parents' responsibility, but it's also the schools. Shouldn't have phones in schools. Absolutely not.
Absolutely. Got some fantastic messages coming in. Let me see if I can do a few here. It's about parenting and teaching at school, says Vivian. Paul, here's one from Charlotte who says, I agree, so many kids have been let down. We were taught how to cook at school, says Phoebes of the UK. I bet they don't do that now. Well, I think they have actually stopped. I mean, I can tell you. Also, I mean, a lot of the problem here is the way the schools operate. And I mean, obviously some teachers are better than others, but I remember one of my kids was asked to cook a meal, cook a curry or something like that, you know, to bring in, because and they were given directions as to what curry to make. And my son made a different curry because, you know, he just wanted to make something else. And they marked him down for it on the grounds that he didn't follow the instructions and make the one that they told him to make. It's like, what sort of cobblers is that?
Absolutely ludicrous.
Right?
And you're right about how schools operate, because already my 5-year-old is having homework set that is online. And I said to the teachers, I'm not having him staring at a screen. If you want to print out his worksheets, we'll do the homework. If you are going to insist that he does Google Classrooms or something like that at the age of 5, I'm not having it.
Exactly right. Now, this is going to be a story that blows your socks off. Too much common sense on here, says Michael. Yeah, you can never get too much of that. Here's one from Cute Kittens. The school should teach about how to spot a sociopath. Yeah, mostly in the Labour government. You know, good idea. How about this, though? This is the story of the day for me. Pages, you know, we don't do showbiz an awful lot on this show, but I mean, on this occasion, I think we make an exception. The Odd Father is the headline, which is great, right? Was Marlon Brando the dad of Michael Jackson's son, Blanket? Well, first of all, what's he doing calling his son Blanket? His brother's called Duvet, and he's got another brother called Pillow. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it seems ridiculous, but in the 17 years since Michael Jackson's death, this is Clemmy Moody's story. She's great. One room refuses to go away. Is he the father of his own kids? You asked the question earlier, which I think is worth repeating. Did Michael Jackson have any sperm of his own? I don't know, is the straight answer. I mean, he was married to Priscilla Presley, wasn't he?
It was such an odd time, and he was such an odd... I mean, I loved Michael Jackson's music, but he was a really, really odd chap, wasn't he? I mean, you remember the way, he was very strange. And I do think the children, I think there are 3 of them, blanket, pillow and bolster, or whatever you
That's
call
right.
them.
Yeah, there's 2 others, Prince and
Prince.
Paris, apparently, 2 other kids. And the fathering of those is also mysterious, apparently.
There was an Australian nurse who was the father of one, who was the mother.
The surrogate mother.
The surrogate mother.
Right.
He obviously wanted children, but wasn't, I don't know, in a position or didn't have any sperm to have them.
Yeah.
I do think they must have a very, very difficult life and must be, you know, all of this. I mean, the father being Marlon Brando. How crazy is that?
It would be crazy. You know, I had a very strange thing. I mean, when I was working in America, actually, it happened. And his son tragically killed himself in Tahiti. Do you remember?
Oh, yeah.
Hanged himself. And I got a phone call late one night. Can you get to Tahiti?
Yeah.
And it was one of those stories that I was like, you know, because when you're a foreign correspondent, you kind of want to go places like that because you're not going to be sent to Tahiti very often. I was like, great. And it turned out they found a quicker way to get there from London than they did from New York. So I didn't get to go, but I was like desperate to go. And, you know, the whole Marlon Brando story is kind of fascinating in a way because he was such a recluse towards the end. He was so weird. I mean, those stories of The Godfather, you know, where he put cotton wool in his mouth to make him look and talk the way that he did, you know. You show me no respect and all that kind of stuff. You know, it's amazing. Amazing. Anyway, quite a story. Let's do some more messages because lots of you have got things to say. Children do not know how to communicate. Parents need to have conversations with their children, says user Ed. Morning to all our community, says Kevin. A very good morning to all of you. There's loads of you watching, 8.3 thousand watching you right now. I need my kids to have smartphones because I track them to know where they are. It's dangerous out there, says Matthew. And that's another issue because we had a story last week, didn't we, where kids were apparently saying that it makes them anxious to know that their parents are tracking them.
This tracking thing, I also have a problem with it. And with respect to your viewer there, I do think it's very, very odd. Look, in my childhood, we were out and about, right? We were out and about in Camden Town, actually, which isn't particularly safe. There were 5 of us roaming the streets. All of our school friends, you were the same, Mike. We were all out roaming the streets. It wasn't a more dangerous time. It was actually, it isn't a more dangerous time now. Life is life. There are cars on the roads, whatever. I'm not sure that we need to track children. I'm not sure that we need to have tabs on them. Yes, a texting phone, a brick phone, a dumb phone might be useful to say, I'm on the bus, I'm on the train, my train's been cancelled, whatever. But in the old days, children were brought up, children survived without having phones or being tracked.
Although, to be fair,
said, come back at 6, take your school uniforms, go out and play, see you at 6 o'clock for your dinner.
Well, also the thing was, I mean, when I was growing up, there was no such thing as a mobile phone, obviously, or a tracking device. And so I would go to school on my own, on the tube. My mother and father didn't know whether I was dead or alive until I came home because you couldn't contact anyone.
If you didn't arrive by about 10 o'clock, the school would ring and go, where's Mike?
Yeah.
You know?
But then my mother wouldn't know anyway. Because if I decided to bunk off for the morning and stay on the bus, because I had a mate who used to call it that, he says, I just decided to stay on the bus and didn't fancy going in for registration. But nobody would know where you were.
But we survived.
We did. But of course, people will say, watching this and listening to this now, we spend an awful lot of time talking about illegal migrants coming to this country and causing problems, many of them, not all of them, but many of them causing problems for young women, particularly in girls, you know, in certain areas, near schools, all of that. You know, so is it right to say that we're not any more dangerously placed than we were? Because maybe in some parts of the country we are actually, it is a bit more dangerous.
But that's an argument for sorting out our illegal immigration.
That's true.
The street.
Yeah, no, I agree.
To that,
I agree.
Were we mentally more healthy then or now?
Yeah.
Well, then, because we didn't have ADHD and depression and anxiety at the age of 10.
Well, you might have had it, but you weren't allowed to do anything about it. You know. Get on with it. Yeah, how about this? Some children like mine are non-verbal due to additional needs, not always due to screen time, says Laura. My son is autistic and we are doing all we can to help him speak, like speech and language therapy. Well, that's different. I mean, that's obviously not the bulk of the people in the country. You know, I sympathise with that. Long gone are the days when you arranged to meet someone at a certain time and they were there at the time agreed, says Canastria. My daughter sends me tracking when she goes out, completely of her own free will, says Zoe. We just have a lovely relationship, nothing sinister. And here's one from where are we? When she was a kid, there weren't hundreds of thousands of Afghans stalking the streets, says Vix. Trump's already refunded lots of UN projects. Most of us in the States would love to leave the United Nations and NATO. We have been piggybacked and ridiculed and taken for granted. Absolutely right. And Michelle says people had more children then, so losing one was no big deal. Just kidding. Yeah, thanks for that. Very cheery. How about this? The super chat from Matthew. I've got 4 daughters. As a father, it is such a worry living in London, especially East London. Khan must go. Well, we'll talk about this. We'll take your views on all of this. We've got a couple of other stories to mention. Front page of the Telegraph: job seekers flood the market as staff are laid off. Amazingly, under Rachel Thieves, the most useless chancellor this country has ever seen, Richard III, there she is. There are more and more people now looking for fewer and fewer jobs. Why? Because companies can't afford to employ people. Why? Because Rachel Reeves has put the taxes up. Why? Because the government is desperate for money. And so I'm afraid the cycle of doom continues, doesn't it?
Absolutely. This country, I mean, economically, they have absolutely destroyed it. But yet, there is always money to send to Ukraine and places all around the world.
Yeah.
All of our money being sent abroad, and there's none for people at home.
Yeah, incredible stuff. Before we talk to our good man, who is, of course, what's his name? Edward Hughes with the news. We can see some of the news across the bottom there. We haven't talked that much about Iran, but we will. Final one for you, Emma. Brits are upset because Greggs have put their prices up.
Right?
Shocking.
Shoppers at Greggs saying things like, it's not fair. I would buy more pastries if it was cheaper. I don't want to pay more for my sausage roll. This is all, Greggs are trying to justify this as the Ozempic effect, the weight loss jabs effect. Everybody got really skinny over Christmas. No one was eating much, so they've had to put their prices up.
Yeah.
They want smaller portions. I do not believe this. I do not believe there is a single Greggs customer who wants a smaller sausage roll. We wouldn't have the obesity problem if anyone wanted a smaller bag of crisps or sausage roll.
Right. Well, you know what everybody's doing now in these shops, as those, they're making everything slightly smaller and charging more for it. 30% price increase on sausage rolls from Greggs since 2022. And this is the thing. I mean, I just found out the other day, talking of Sadiq Khan, they put the congestion charge up from 15 quid to 18 quid in London, right? So if you're driving a car, £3 on 15 is what? 20% pay, is a 20% rise. This is a 30% rise. When people tell me that inflation is running at 5%, I just go, I'm sorry, that's not true.
No, you see it in supermarkets, you see it all over the place. You see prices and transport and all of that going up, and actually you're getting less. And this shrinkflation thing where they're gradually reducing the bag of crisps or the size of the sausage roll and putting the prices up, as you say, 20, 30%. There is absolutely nothing that we can do about it.
There really isn't. Just stop buying from Greggs, I suppose, if you're going to buy a sausage roll somewhere else. I don't know how competitive they are. I'm not somebody that buys an awful lot of sausage rolls, even though some people probably say I look like I do. You know, I really don't. Love the new sign, says Jonathan. Good to see you back on the correct end of the desk. Makes for better camera angles and far more polished. Yes, because this time last week, you were sitting here and I was sitting there. And a lot of people complained about the fact that I should be here. And I think actually they were right. And you might have noticed that when we first got the sign, which is behind me here, it was kind of reddish on Friday. We decided to make it blue today because we thought it might look a bit more as if it was in tune with what I was wearing. And in fact, we may even have a green one. So next time you come in a green sweater, we could make it green.
Well, this was to celebrate the warmer weather because it is a bit mild in London. But I'm excited about this idea that you might do multicolored signs that will sort of coordinate with your tie.
I know. Well, we can actually change the color as we go. So we'll take a view on it. Like all of the things that we ask you to do, if you advise us that you want to see a change, then we'll make it happen. Jeff, for example, from Tacoma in Washington, USA. Any way you can get more clocks in the studio?
I agree.
Says Jeff. I mean, we're trying to get more clocks. In fact, funnily enough, there was a digital clock that somebody was going to buy for me at the weekend, but because it wasn't flat enough, so I turned it down because it was going to go on the wall, but it was a bit too deep, so I wasn't too sure. Know Thyself says they would charge you for the air that you breathe if they could. And lots and lots of you commenting and saying there's so many great comments, we can't get to them all.
Sadiq Khan will be charging us for the pollution that we breathe.
Oh my God. We give our tax money to anyone and everyone, but not to the UK people. Lord Viking says, Mike, I want a neon heron behind you. You know, isn't it amazing? I was about to read that one and then it suddenly popped up on the screen. Herons visiting. I tell you what, it's absolutely amazing. Here's one from Mandy who says, why has Mike got a lisp? I haven't got a lisp. I've never had a lisp. Do I sound like I've got a lisp?
No.
Maybe it's something to do with the way that you've tuned your scenario. Mike, please, you're flogging a dead horse with this Edward Hughes feature. It's amateurish and spoils your show. Ditch it, says Jammy Horse. And I'm afraid I can't. Edward Hughes is a very popular man. And in fact, we're going to go to his news very, very shortly. Also, we're going to do Plank of the Day. And we've got loads and loads of great clips coming up. We've got Mark Littlewood joining us. We've got lots of other great guests. Ralph Schulhammer is here as well. Harry Miller is going to be here. And we've got a great after show for you today because the after show, which comes every single day to some Substack subscribers is from somebody with an interest in a particular subject. And we're going to be talking to investigative journalist Alan Duncan today, who's going to give us the latest on Shamima Begum. He's actually interviewed her out there in the camps of Syria and northern Iraq, and we're going to find out from him what the latest situation is with the Yazidis and everything that's going on in Iran as well, because, as I say, plenty to talk about this morning. Emma Wolf, thank you so much for popping in. Safe home on the bicycle.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as I say, luckily the black ice has disappeared. It's not quite as cold as it has been for the last few days. It's coming up now to what, 7:36. I don't know where the time goes. It's Monday morning. It's January the 12th. This is, of course, the home of common sense, the real home of common sense. It's the Mike Graham Show. We'll be back with Edward Hughes and the news after this.
This is your UK News Bulletin for Monday, January 12th, read by me, Edward Hughes. Parliament returns today after the Christmas recess. Don't they realise the rest of us have already been back to work for a week, with MPs in the Commons debating housing targets, leasehold reforms and key amendments to the Finance Bill, including government changes to the so-called family farm tax on inheritance relief for agricultural and business assets. The cold snap from Storm Goretti is finally easing. Expect milder, wetter and windier conditions across much of the country, with patchy rain and the risk of lingering ice in some spots. Politically, Keir Starmer faces mounting pressure to deliver on cost of living promises in 2026. Of course, the cost of living does not affect Sir Keir, as he vows to stay focused on easing household bills amid low approval ratings and the growing challenge from Reform UK. In extremely local news, like local to me anyway, I was spotted in the street for the first time yesterday. A lovely young man wanted an autograph and a photo. Of course I obliged. More from me later. And please remember to like and subscribe to the Mike Graham Show. Take it easy out there, Tigers.
That was Edward Hughes with the news. A lot of you love Edward. Some of you are still saying it's a bit amateurish and we don't know why we're doing it. But we told him to tighten up his, all sorts of things actually, but certainly tighten up his news reading abilities because we don't want it to go on for too long. You can see that we've also got a ticker along the bottom of the page now as well. So we'll update that as and when. The EU demands the Nigel Farage clause in talks over Brexit reset. We'll play you some stuff on that coming up with Mark Littlewood in a little while. But for right now, it's time to do Plank of the Day. And I'm delighted to say that today we are going to nominate a Labour MP, and he's a guy by the name of Oliver Ryan, right? Oliver Ryan is proud Labour Member of Parliament for Burnley. I'm told that he's not very popular in Burnley. Quite a lot of people don't really like him. But he got stuck into Nigel Farage at the back end of last week and into the weekend because a leader of Reform, Nigel Farage, says calls to ban X in the UK are appalling because, of course, Keir Starmer thinks that one of the things that he wants to do and one of the things he should do is to somehow put even more restrictions on free speech, and the reasoning being that on X, lots of people have been making images which are not particularly pleasant. Some of them are sort of funny, some of them are not funny. I haven't seen anything particularly outrageous. I've seen lots of pictures of Keir Starmer in a bikini, which, while it's pretty upsetting, doesn't really spoil my breakfast. It doesn't really make me worry about it. Lots of people also asking for other women to be put in bikinis, which has upset them. And apparently some people have been creating what can only be described as some pretty disgraceful sexual images, some including children. But as others have pointed out, it's possible to do that with Photoshop. It's possible to do it with all manner of other different, editing tools. And, Grok and X are not the only ones to do it. But Oliver Ryan decided to say this and have a pop at Nigel Farage. He says, let's have it right, Nigel. If any other online platform was generating sexually explicit images of children and women, you'd want it restricted. But this one is MAGA endorsed and pays you thousands to post on it. Honestly, this man would sell his granny for a tenner. Now, it's pretty rich from any Labour MP who wants to talk about selling grannies for a tenner. Most MPs have large expenses. Most MPs run offices, and some of them run them legitimately, and some of them spend an awful lot of money. Many of them have charged monies to the public purse, which they shouldn't have done. They charge things like paper clips, they charge things like pencils, they charge taxis, they charge accommodation. Many of them have the right to do so, but I believe that, like Rupert Lowe, for example, who doesn't even take his own salary, they shouldn't max out all of the expenses claims that they can. But guess what? It turns out, because I thought I'd have a look, because I always like to do this, whenever you get these politicians being high on the hog, it's always nice to see exactly just what they spend their money on. And I had a look at Oliver Ryan, Labour MP for Burnley. He's been an MP since July 2024, so he's a bit of a newbie, but it hasn't stopped him taking the absolute mickey out of the taxpayer, right? As it turns out, he's charged around about £230,000 in expenses in 1 year to the taxpayer. That's you and I paying for it. Accommodation, £21,460. And that means whatever the second home allowance is, he's charging something in an excess of £1,800 a month. He's then got MP travel, £9,792.85. Which seems like quite a lot of money for travelling up and down to Burnley. He's got office costs of £29,737.31. He's got staff travel of £5,365, and he's got staffing costs of £165,000. Staffing costs, right? He's also got miscellaneous. Now, I don't know what miscellaneous could be, because if you've got staffing covered, you've got travel covered, you've got office costs covered, you've got accommodation covered, what could be the miscellaneous £3,000 other than an allowance which you're allowed to claim for without necessarily having to say exactly what it's for? So Oliver Ryan, I'm afraid you are plank of the day. But it gets worse, because it's not just the money. It turns out that Oliver Ryan is indeed somebody who was in trouble with the Labour Party. You might remember, of course, back in the days when there was yet another, Andrew Gwynn, I think his name was, who got suspended from the Labour Party and eventually was asked to step down from his seat because at the end of the day, he had been having a go at pensioners on a WhatsApp group, saying that it was good that some pensioners might die off because of the winter fuel allowance being withdrawn from them because they don't vote Labour anyway. And Oliver Ryan, of course, decided that he didn't like the fact that I was being critical of him. So he decided to have a go at me. And he goes, LOL, laugh out loud, the concrete growing guy is still going. So when I asked him whether or not he would be able to supply me with a reason why he'd spent £3,000 on a miscellaneous arrangement, he couldn't answer, I'm afraid. But if you look at the statement that he put out, I think we can get it up there on the screen. If you look at the statement that he put out, I can read it to you. This is the man who had made offensive comments in a WhatsApp group, which included racist remarks about Diane Abbott and sexualised comments about Angela Rayner. And when he was found out, this clown put this post on social media. He said, between 2019 and early 2022, I was a member of a WhatsApp group by my MP and former employer, Andrew Gwynn. Some of the comments made in that group were completely unacceptable, and I fully condemn them. I regret not speaking out at the time, and I recognise that failing to do so was wrong. I did not see every message, but I accept responsibility for not being more proactive in challenging what was said. I also made some comments myself, which I deeply regret and would not make today, and for that I wholeheartedly apologise. Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Oliver Ryan MP. You can answer my question anytime you like, and I'll continue to ask it. What did you spend the £3,000 on, and which you then put into your accounts as miscellaneous spending? I think the public has a right to know, the constituents of Burnley have a right to know, and I think you should come clean instead of trying to be a smart ass every single minute of the day. Plank of the day, Oliver Ryan MP. Thank you very much indeed. Lots of great comments coming in today, and we will be talking about the news headlines, of course, coming up. It's 7:44. My husband came in last night, says Deanie Weenie, upset as he had actually measured his Jaffa cakes and they've got smaller and thinner, and that's why he's eating a whole packet at a time. Super chat from Jeff, who says, Mike, any way you can get more clocks in the studio? I think we've done that one. Cheers from Tacoma in Washington. Do hit the like button, says Sarhet. Hand pink waving, hand pink waving, hand pink waving. Yeah, do hit the like button and do subscribe because we're doing really, really well. Good morning, everyone. I hope you all had a lovely Christmas, as Idiomation. Haven't seen you for a while because Christmas season is my busy work time. We'll be going back on what I've missed. Love the studio. Looks absolutely fantastic. Yes, absolutely right. They will, says Geordie, if the electricity goes out, Steve. No electricity, no gas, no heating. There would be hell on to pay, and rightly so. Lots of you have got things to say. Could you put Ed in a bikini? Ed who? Oh, you mean Ed Miliband? Or Edward Hughes? Oh, Edward Hughes. Is he a naturist, says Catherine? He keeps flashing his naked chest. I'm not sure if he is a naturist, but we will try and find out if that is the case. Now, coming up, we've got lots more to do. Many of you, of course, have got words and questions for us, which we will get to as much as we can. We've got some great guests coming up on this show, but all through the week, we've got some fantastic guests. Coming up next, we're going to talk to Harry Miller. Mark Littlewood is here a little bit later on, The Economist. Ralph Schulhammer as well. And the after show today is with Alan Duncan, investigative journalist who's been to visit Shamima Begum. He'll bring us the latest on whether she is going to be brought back to this country. And of course, indeed, he'll have things to say about what's going on in Iran. The front page is all full of pictures of a young woman, 23 years of age, Rabina Aminian, a fashion student, killed by riot police during a protest in Tehran. Her mother had to search through hundreds of bodies to identify her, and it looks as though, according to human rights organisation Iran Human Rights in Oslo, she was shot in the back of the head, and that's her picture you can see there. Absolutely shocking state of affairs. And isn't it interesting that all the usual suspects who are out and about complaining about Israel and Palestine have not had a word to say about Iran? Jeremy Corbyn is indeed one of them. Hi, Mike from Pigeon, Michigan, USA, says Cindy. Pigeon, is that the name of the place? Wonderful. And Russell says, Mike, the clock on the wall is 1 minute faster than the digital one. Which is the correct clock? Well, I can give you the time check now. It's 7:47, according to what I believe to be the correct time. That clock behind me might be a little bit fast because it's not particularly digital. It's a bit more of an analog clock, but we'll keep you informed. Don't worry. This, of course, is the home of common sense. It's the Mike Graham Show. We're here with you every single weekday morning from 7 until 9 a.m. Don't forget to go and watch Plank of the Week as well. And the first Plank of the Week went out on Friday night. Lots of you watched it. We want more of you to watch it as well. You can still see it every single day until we do the next one on Friday. Let's right now, though, talk to Harry Miller, a man who is he not here yet? Oh, he's not here yet. Sorry, my apologies. We will get to Harry Miller. But let's talk again about what's on the front pages then. The Metropolitan Police have hit out at false claims that the capital city of London is too dangerous, right? According to Sir Mark Rowley, the Metropolitan Police Commissioner, there are figures that he can show that serious violent crime in the capital is actually down. According to him, the number of killings in the capital last year was at its lowest since 2014, down to 97. That's nearly 100 people killed, right? Apparently in 2024 it was 109. Metropolitan data also shows there were 8 teenage killings, a figure last seen in 2012. Today, London has its lowest homicide levels in a decade and the lowest ever per capita. This is despite claims circulated online, including AI-generated videos creating fictional violent scenarios. Some commentators promote a narrative that suits them, regardless of the facts that tell a very different story. London is safer, and the progress we are making in saving lives is immeasurable and independently evidenced. This is not a matter of opinion or messaging. It is what the data shows. Well, of course, the problem with data is that it can and it is often manipulated. For example, people complain about what is called low-level crime, like burglary, like car theft, like phone theft. I mean, people just don't bother reporting an awful lot of that because, quite frankly, they don't really even manage to actually give you a crime number. And you don't always need a crime number. I mean, when I had my phone stolen, for example, which is quite a long time ago now, I didn't have to get a crime number in order to claim the insurance on it because they just gave me a new phone anyway. And of course, the police famously didn't want to investigate it until I wrote a piece in the Telegraph about it. And then suddenly they were very keen to do so. So if you've had an experience with the police, do let us know. If you've reported a crime to the police, let us know what they did. Because whether or not Britain is safer than it was is not the issue. The problem at the moment, right, is that actually people are frightened because they think crime is up. And petty crime is definitely up. There's no question at all that what we have here is basically a problem with what you might call low-level crime. You know, there are plenty of people who will tell you that there's worse things happening in their local shop than there were 2 years ago. There's more people shoplifting. I mean, like I said before, all you've got to do is walk into any local supermarket and you will find that everything's locked up. Try and buy a bottle of wine. You have to ring a bell. You have to get somebody to come and unlock the cabinet. You know, try and buy a steak. Try and buy some chicken. Try and buy some sausages. You need a combination, for heaven's sake, in order to do it. It's just mad. It's crazy. Absolutely ridiculous. Let's do a few more messages. Here's one from King Callum. London needs to be safe immediately. Absolutely right. Petty crime is mostly unreported, says Cute Kittens. I think that's true. And there is a lot of unreported crime, says Derry Shaw. Here's one from Satan Humper, who says, London is safe. I've lived here all my life, maybe because I'm rough and ready. Well, look, London is a city like many others. You know, I've lived in New York, I've lived in London, I've lived in Glasgow, I've lived in Bath, I've been in many, many dangerous places in the world. But I think to say right now, as the chief of the Metropolitan Police, that London is somehow safer than it's ever been is absolutely ridiculous. Stevie Boy notes this. He says, security guards are now everywhere. And if so safe, then how come that's the case? Well, that's a very good point. Petty people make petty crimes, says Lord Viking. Johnny says, I got mugged 2 years ago in London. Police did nothing and closed the case without telling me, and it was all on CCTV. And as I say, Sir Mark Rowley, according to Mark, doesn't want to listen to people who have eyes. That is the problem. You know, it's become a political football now. So if you are sort of, you know, supposedly on the left side of politics, what will happen is that you will say, oh, it's not very dangerous at all. But in fact, what you will get is if you're on the right of politics, you will be accused of making up numbers and accused of scaremongering people and accused of making out that actually it's not in any way as dangerous as you say. Well, you know, we've got lots of people we can ask, and we will take a lot of your views as well. I'm delighted to say that we are now joined by Mr. Mark Littlewood. Very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike. Great to be in the studio.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, I'm wearing pink, not blue.
No, that's
I didn't,
okay.
I didn't know what your neon light colour was going to be.
We can change it while you're here if you like, because it does change colour.
Wow.
But you know, it's very, very, very efficient in that way. Let's have a look. See if we can do it here. There we go. It looks green now. Make it green.
Emma was in green, right?
I like it in blue. I think we'll
blue is good.
Yeah, blue is good. Goes with my jacket. Anyway, good to see you.
Good to see you.
So thank you very much indeed. I know you've been travelling to foreign parts.
Yes.
Warmer climes and all of that. I'm going to ask you about London, actually, because you're a Londoner. You live here. Metropolitan boss on the top of the Times this morning, Sir Mark Rowley, trying to do that thing that lefties are now trying to do all the time, which is to say, if you're right wing, you're obviously lying about the crime stats. Because you're pretending London's more dangerous now because you don't like Sadiq Khan. Really?
Yeah, it's shocking, right? I mean, it's just another example, isn't it, of the technocratic managerial class that runs Britain from beginning to end.
Yeah.
Everything can be explained by a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Seems to be the basic approach, and it can't be. And look, sometimes you do get the case where the public don't judge risk properly. I mean, to give you an example, we tend to think that the chance that a kid can be snatched from the street by some ghastly child molester is higher than it is, right? So we often misjudge risks. But an important part of living in any city is that you feel safe.
Yeah.
It's not just about the statistics.
Yes.
You were touching on this a few minutes ago, such a ton of low-level crime. You might get your phone snatched.
Yeah.
That's not going to end your life, but it's an annoyance.
It is.
You might get your handbag.
And it's happening to the tune of something like 2,000 a week, I believe, isn't it?
And once you get all that low-level stuff, you just start to feel uneasy and on edge.
Yeah.
Continually, checking your pockets, making sure, my other half tells me never ever to take a phone call when I'm walking down the street.
Right.
So, keep your phone, ignore that. But at some point, I'm going to learn the lesson the hard way.
You will.
The phone will get nicked.
Because it depends where you are as well. I mean, there are certain sort of hotspots for it. I mean, I used to tell my kids, whatever you do, always go into a doorway if you're going to do it. And the one time that I didn't do that, I had it nicked.
Yeah,
the guy literally took it out of my hand,
Yeah, there you go. So, it seems to me that people do feel more uneasy, less safe than they felt 10 years ago. And it's not just a question of what you said on the spreadsheet. And as you've already pointed out, Mike, the problem with the stats is what's reported and what isn't.
Yeah.
I mean, now more and more people know that what's the clear up rate of burglaries in London? It's under 2%.
It's under 2%, yeah. And in the country nationally, I think it's under 6%.
Well, there you go. Now, once those statistics become more widely known, why bother reporting it?
Yes.
So therefore, the statistics might show that burglaries are falling, but it's really just a reflection of people saying there's no point in calling plot because there's only a 2% chance that anything will happen. It will take even more of our time.
Yeah.
So reported crime might be falling because people have lost confidence in the police.
And I think that's been going on for quite a long time. Yeah. But, the idea that people, I mean, it may well be, I mean, it's not much of a reduction. They're talking about a low number of murders, 97 down from 109. I mean, it's 12, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I would have thought so. It's a statistical kind of problem of, it's like saying how many people are dying in car crashes,
My favourite little parts of the world is Jersey.
Yes.
And I remember a few years ago going to the Jersey Museum and they were celebrating how Jersey had improved since the 1980s.
Yeah.
And one of their great statistics was that they'd halved homelessness in the capital city from 12 people to 6.
Well, I'm always suspicious of anyone that uses percentages as opposed to actual numbers, because whenever you see a percentage, you think there's a reason why you're not using the real number here. Because, you know, if you're going to say something's down 50%, it might have gone from 2 to 1 or something like that. You know, it is ridiculous. I mean, the same goes for you know, the whole situation regarding economic spending. We'll talk to you probably after 8 o'clock about this, but I mean, let me play a little clip of Nigel Farage, because he was talking over the weekend about the two-child benefit cap. He's been accused of all manner of things by Rachel Reeves, including being racist, which seems a bit weird, given the reason that she accused me of that was because it was actually a racist comment that she made. But let's have a look at what Nigel Farage has to say about the two-child benefit cap.
We're going to vote in Parliament on the two-child cap benefit being removed, being given out to an unlimited number of children. Now, Rachel Reeves, you know the one, our Chancellor, the one that lied about her CV and is utterly useless and leading the economy over a cliff, chooses to use racial slurs against us. But here are the facts. 50% of those who will get a lot more money every year for an unlimited number of children are with overseas parents. Now, maybe you think that's fair and reasonable, maybe you don't. But with us, you get the facts, you get them straight. And frankly, I think this is going to cost an absolute fortune to the British economy, and we must stand up and fight back. All this government can do is throw abuse, never tell you the truth.
Yeah, we'll never tell you the truth. Francis says, I'm in Wanaka. I'm not sure where that is, but thank you for letting us know. Oh, New Zealand. Okay, very good. All over the world, people are watching this show. Mark, so basically there's Nigel Farage, Leader of Reform, saying that he believes that the two-child benefit cap is something that they think should be lifted, but they think it should only be lifted for British families. And his point is that, you know, if many of the families who are now going to be eligible for it are actually from foreign parts, that will end up costing this country far too much, and more probably than we can afford. Now, immediately Rachel Reeves called that a racist remark, but he wasn't talking about skin colour. He wasn't talking about what ethnicity people were from. He was simply saying, if you're British and you're a British citizen, then you should get it. But if you're not, you shouldn't.
Yeah, this is, I mean, Labour are using the same playbook against Nigel Farage that Kamala Harris and the Democrats tried to use against Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And I suspect it will be to the same remarkable lack of effect. I've got a great deal of sympathy with the approach that Reform are taking to say that an awful lot of your rights, whether those are about particular benefits you qualify for or something else, should be based upon you being a member of the club.
Right.
In this case, being a Brit Cit, right? And immediately this is racist. Well, if you think it's racist, we should be offering child benefit to everybody on planet Earth.
Well, right.
Why do you even need to live in the UK? Why don't we offer child benefit right across the globe?
You say that, but of course it actually is the case that we do.
Yeah,
because I remember working in Scotland, living in Scotland, back in the sort of early part of the 2000s, around about 2004-05, when a lot of Polish people came to this country, and I just had a couple of kids at that point as well. And in the nursery, there were quite a lot of Polish families who had their kids, but they would say, oh yeah, we're going back to Poland, or we go back to Poland every 6 months and spend 6 months there, but they still pay child benefit to us when we're in Poland.
Yeah, crazy.
So the whole system has been to cock for a long time.
Absolutely. So I think we've got to tighten up a lot by saying that for a whole range of benefits, you need to be a British citizen to be able to claim them, and you need to be resident here as well. I mean, haven't we also had the farce of sending out winter fuel allowance to people who've moved to where I've just come back from in Tenerife?
Yeah,
you don't really need much to keep you warm.
They used to get it in America, right? And she wrote to them multiple times saying, look, I don't want this. I don't want you to keep sending me this money. I don't live in Britain anymore. So even when the weather's cold, it doesn't actually apply to me. Of course, it's colder there anyway, but she couldn't get them to stop sending the money.
Yes. I mean, the whole system is completely broken. So our biggest export now, Mike, basically as an economy, welfareism. That's basically what we're exporting.
I mean, I'd like to say at least we're good at something, but actually, it's really not actually something we're good at. Mark Little was here from Popular Conservatives, and we're going to talk some more to him about the state of the economy. We've got the two-child benefit cap debate coming this week in Parliament, which we will get to. Also want to talk to you about the European Union as well, because also, you know, this exit clause that they want to put in called the Farage clause, that Keir Starmer wants to try and get closer recognition and closer alignment with the European Union, even though we all voted to leave the bleeding thing. We'll come back to him with that. Harry Miller was running a little bit late. Harry Miller will join us in the next hour. He'll have lots to say, no doubt, about the police and their crime statistics and how they collect them. But also he'll have much to say about the West Midlands Chief Constable, who is now looking like a man who will not have a job very shortly, because the front page of the Times says that members of the Home Affairs Select Committee, senior MPs, are going to demand that Shabana Mahmood sacks him because of his conduct and because of the way that he lied and misled Parliament, and also because of the way that he kowtowed to the Muslim community in Birmingham over that football match between Aston Villa and Maccabi Tel Aviv. It's coming up to just 1 minute past 8. Let's get Edward Hughes with the news.
This is your UK news bulletin for Monday, January 12th, read by me, Edward Hughes. Parliament returns today after the Christmas recess. Don't they realise the rest of us have already been back to work for a week, with MPs in the Commons debating housing targets, leasehold reforms and key amendments to the Finance Bill, including government changes to the so-called family farm tax on inheritance relief for agricultural and business assets. The cold snap from Storm Goretti is finally easing. Expect milder, wetter and windier conditions across much of the country, with patchy rain and the risk of lingering ice in some spots. Politically, Keir Starmer faces mounting pressure to deliver on cost of living promises in 2026. Of course, the cost of living does not affect Sir Keir, as he vows to stay focused on easing household bills amid low approval ratings and the growing challenge from Reform UK. In extremely local news, like local to me anyway, I was spotted in the street for the first time yesterday. A lovely young man wanted an autograph and a photo. Of course I obliged. More from me later. And please remember to like and subscribe to the Mike Graham Show. Take it easy out there, Tigers.
There he is, Edward Hughes with the news. A very polarising figure. Many of you think he's brilliant, many of you don't. But don't worry, because there is room for all of us here at the Mike Graham Show, because it is the fastest growing show in the country. Fab show, Mike. Sack the West Midlands Police Chief now, says David. And lots of you have got things to say about that. Edward Hughes looks like a bad Grinder profile, says Kirk. That's a bit harsh. Derry Shaw says, so Leave to Remain, who do everything right and work and have for years, are okay to pay for others that do not work. How is that fair when they have paid into the system? Morning, Mike. Fantastic to watch such a popular man, says Minky. Tells you everything. People really appreciate someone representing them. The only thing I'm sceptical about are the subscribers. Well, there's 123,000 subscribers out there now, so do please subscribe and like the channel and get those subscriber numbers up. Christopher says, morning, Mike. Great show from Thailand. With my 2 children, there's no crime here like the UK. If I went into a shop and stole an apple, I'd get locked up. Police are not soft and there's no graffiti in the parks. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. We'll talk some more about West Midlands policing crisis coming up with Harry Miller a little bit later on. But Mark Littlewood is here with us. Mark, I want to play you something because this is literally the last sort of video that Keir Starmer has put out. You know, we know all about his obsession with X and his apparent wanting to shut it down. But this is from last Wednesday, right? PMQs, Prime Minister's Questions. This is Keir Starmer defending the government's record.
Yeah, when on this side we turn a corner, people benefit from the decisions we made, £150 off energy bills, freezing rail fares and lifting 500,000 children out of poverty. We're turning the corner and there's much more to come.
Now, some people are saying, Mark, that the reason he's not been posting on Twitter is because he wants to shut it down. That may well be true. But let's face it, every time he stands up in Parliament, he gets an absolute shellacking from the Tories. Kerry Badenoch, again, is on his case, and she's doing a good job doing that. He keeps claiming that we're turning a corner. He keeps saying we're going to get richer. He keeps talking about making improvements and fixing things. I mean, do you see any evidence at all of that?
No evidence for it happening. And no seeds have been planted that would make you think it's going to happen either, Mike,
No.
right? I mean, I've discussed this with you before, but sometimes in terms of the economy, you can make some like difficult, tough, radical decisions that take a bit of time to bear fruit.
Yeah.
You know, but I can't think of any radical, tough decisions he's taken other than just putting up our taxes, which tends to depress economic growth,
Yes.
prosperity across the board. Now, here's the problem. I'm no psychologist, right? But let me try a little bit of amateur psychology. I think Starmer and Reeves have this weird belief that if they keep saying something long enough, it becomes true.
Yes.
So all of this, we're laser focused on growth.
Right.
You keep saying that, somehow growth happens.
Yes.
It's like doing a rain dance.
This is clearly the sort of the MO of this government, because they've been doing it ever since they got in. You know, where they'll tell you that we're going to smash the gangs. We've kept saying it for quite a long time. They now don't say it anymore because obviously we can actually say, well, you haven't smashed the gangs. Similarly, if they keep telling us we're turning a corner and we're all about renewal, people don't really know what it means, and they kind of go, okay, we're renewing what exactly?
So I've got a bit more sympathy, Mike, with the turn the corner, because as any driver will know, if you turn a corner twice, you've done a U-turn. And that's pretty much what they're into. They just do.
What was it? Last week we had the 12th U-turn in a row, and this was on the pub tax that they're going to now no longer hike, which they were going to hike. But it's too late, isn't it? Because pubs are already now dying. There's now a story, in fact, in the Telegraph this morning saying that pubs are now under threat from a recycling tax, because it turns out that in another shake-up, glass packaging sold in pubs is now classed as household waste. This is despite pubs already being charged for recycling it as commercial waste. So it's kind of death of a thousand cuts.
It is.
Ridiculous bureaucracy.
I mean, the hospitality trade, terrible. Well, I've got a theory, Mike, about why Keir Starmer's going south anti-X.
Yeah.
And it might be my fault, because I've dug up a tweet from 5 years ago.
Right.
Reads as follows. This government has lurched from crisis to crisis and U-turn to U-turn. To correct one error, even two might make sense. But when they've notched up 12 U-turns and rising, the only conclusion is serial incompetence.
Yep.
That tweet was from Keir Starmer about Boris Johnson's government on the 2nd of September 2020.
Funny that, isn't it? There is always a tweet, isn't there?
There's always a tweet. So, yeah, I mean, the pub industry you mentioned, I mean, and the other thing, I was debating this on a TV channel yesterday as well. They want to cut the drink driving limit, the amount of alcohol you have. I mean, how many different things can pubs deal with, especially rural pubs? It's probably less of a problem in big cities where people can often walk to the pub, or it's just a short skip, hop and a jump home. But yeah, pubs closing at the rate of one a day, that's going to accelerate because they're being attacked from every angle.
Yeah.
And they're saying, well, if you want to go to a pub and have a couple of pints, don't drive yourself, get a taxi. But of course, in the budget, they've put up VAT on taxi.
VAT on taxi fare.
Every single thing is making it harder. Every single thing. And eventually the accumulation of all of that makes it impossible to keep your doors open. It's it's sort of 10 measurable things rather than one killer blow.
Well, if you talk to anyone setting up a business, and I include myself in that with this new venture that we've got, the amount of taxes that you get hit by, the amount of levies that you have to pay, the business rates that go up, it's literally, you feel like you're sort of walking through a corridor getting punched by somebody every 5 yards who wants to stop you from getting from this point to that point over there. I agree with that. And it's totally strangling innovation.
And it's not just that the taxes are high, it's that they're incredibly complicated. Right. I'm going through my tax return now. You've got to file your personal tax return, haven't you, by the end of January? And I'm not trying to cheat the system at all, but it's going to take me hours. I've got to go through every fee I've ever picked up from any, I've got to, what have I actually claimed out of any ISAs? We've got to get the tax form down to a couple of pages. So not only do we want taxes to be lower, but they've got to be simpler. The same goes with regulation as well, right? So it's not just being punched in the face, it's being punched in the face from behind. You can't even see it coming. You only know you've broken the rule. Exactly right.
Effectively. Neil's just tweeted us and said he's watching from Japan, which is great. And here's another indicator of the business state that we are currently in. This is coming from a survey from KPMG and the Recruitment and Employment Confederation. Laid off workers are flooding the jobs market after Labour's pro-union overhaul and a surge in costs caused business confidence to hit a 5-year low. The number of people now seeking permanent work rose at its fastest pace in 4 months in December. Because more and more people are being laid off because companies can't afford to keep them on. Fewer and fewer jobs being chased by more and more people. A recipe for disaster.
It is, of course. And it's a large amount of this is about cost. If you put up the cost of employing people, all things equal, businesses will take on fewer employees. And this is in these sort of surveys, Mike, where you'll really see it. Look, if the cost of employing somebody goes up 1%, 2%, 3%, you don't necessarily immediately fire your current staff, but you're very cautious about taking new people on. And it's not just on the tax side. If this so-called employment rights bill comes through, which is going to say people get full rights. I think they're now accepting within 6 months of
Yeah.
being employed.
Not actually on day one.
Not absolutely on day one. Trade unions get a whole bunch of new rights. To, it's a nightmare for a business. So it's not just about the cost of employing people. It's the risk you're going to end up in court if you're employing somebody you don't know. So all of that taken in the round, if you're a business, you're going to be super, super cautious.
Yes.
That's saying, I'm going to take a punt and take on another couple of employees, especially for a small business. You're likely to run a mile because of tax and this incoming regulation.
Yeah. And yet one of the mantras, again, as you say, things that they just keep saying, let's just do this one. It's here. Geordie says, just sit down and look how many taxes people pay, from your pay tax, car tax, council tax, every other tax, and now tell me in how much money the Treasury takes in per year. Do the sums, people. Well, the trouble is they're taking in more and more money and giving it out to more and more people who are not contributing at all, because we've got a larger number now of people who don't actually make any money and who don't pay any tax or hardly any tax. And they're now, under the two-child benefit cap being lifted, going to get even more money. But as I said, if you look at the state of, for example, any situation where Starmer starts talking about things that he's done that are good, he always says, we've put wages up. But he's only put wages up because of the fact that they've handed and gifted a whole load of money to people in the public sector. NHS, doctors got a 35% pay rise. Train drivers, of course, as well. I know technically that's kind of private public, but still public service industries. Everyone who's been given a pay rise in the public sector is now better off than they've ever been. And all private sector workers are worse off than they've ever been.
And I would say, as I'm often prone to say to you, Mike, it's even worse than that, right? Because what this government's basically done is to broadly punish the productive side of the economy, people who are creating wealth, who are creating jobs, who are setting up new businesses, and giving it to the unproductive side. So if you were to look at the public sector, areas where government controls pay rather than the businesses themselves, there has basically been no gain in public sector productivity since the mid-1990s. Right. By productivity, this is a measurement of how much bang for your buck are you getting, how much you're getting out of each hour worked. So are brain surgeons doing more brain surgery? Are train drivers getting you from A to B faster? Are refuse collection workers picking up more litter? No additional productivity since 1995. I mean, this is eye-watering, because think of all the technological developments we've had since 1995. The internet's become ubiquitous. Everybody's got a mobile phone. You would have thought we can achieve more for less. But we're rewarding people in a sector that has no productivity growth by saying have a 10% pay rise here, a 28% pay rise here. You've got to reward people if, and pretty much only if, their productivity goes up. That's when you get a pay rise. And that would be my sort of deal with the public sector. Look, if the NHS gets way better, we'll pay you more. If the trains get way cleaner, faster, safer, we'll pay you more. But we're not going to pay you more just because inflation's gone up. Anyone in the private sector, all right, sometimes you can just be on the coattails of a successful company. But basically speaking, you will do well if your productivity goes up. And if it doesn't, and your business's productivity doesn't go up, even if you're really putting your shoulder to the wheel, don't expect a pay rise.
Of course.
And we've got to have the same rules in the public sector.
Of course, they bang on about how inflation has gone up. That's why people need a new pay rise. Then in the next breath, they're telling us we've reduced inflation. We've had, rates have fallen for the last 4 consecutive times, or whatever it is.
Pick a lane, then. Pick a lane.
But I mean, that's it. And talk about the NHS. I mean, the Daily Record today, it's up in Scotland, this figure, but they've got a budget coming up this week. So this is quite important. And of course, they've got the all-important Scottish government elections, Scottish Parliament elections coming up in May. Scots are waiting half a decade for knee and hip operations, despite First Minister John Swinney claiming the NHS has turned a corner. There's another one. So if you want a hip operation in Scotland, you've got to wait 5 years. Good luck if you're still alive, if you're able to walk.
It's a pretty bad corner to have turned, I would have said.
Well, you got to turn very quickly when you've
gone down some dark side alley where you're going to get mugged.
Absolutely.
It's terrible. I mean, the National Health Service, look, there are certain things I understand why people love about it. It's universal. Oftentimes it's been there in the time of need. It's free at the point of use. You need to preserve those things. But its record compared to similar Western European countries is a disaster.
It's broken. It's not fit for purpose. This one from Mr. Higgs Boson. Video game controller hobbles along unhappily with a broken arm. Interesting. One from Kafka, who says, can you voice over Starmer like the media did with Sinn Féin in the 80s and 90s? P.S. West Midlands Police ignored my burglary in 2022 by machete-wielding thugs.
Jeez.
Well, there you go. I mean, that's the problem, isn't it? Frozen train fares because no one has a job to get in a train to go to. Well, I mean, that was one of his great claims, isn't it? With frozen train fares, as if that's fantastic. Meanwhile, train fares have never been higher.
No, that's right. Also worth saying, look, I'm all in favour of making it easier for people to get to work, but overwhelmingly, it's not true. It's a generalisation, so generalisation klaxon. But trains are used by the affluent, right? Generally speaking, poorer people are either driving, taking the bus, taking a bicycle to work, whatever. So it's the affluent who are typically commuting. So if you're freezing train fares and subsidising trains, right, well, you're helping that cohort. But by and large, you're helping the people who are doing pretty well at the expense of people who are not doing so well. So it is in aggregate a subsidy to the affluent middle class.
I mean, is there anybody in this government that you think has any understanding whatsoever of economics? Because it doesn't seem as if they do.
No, I mean, actually, also, if you look at it, I can't remember the exact details now, but the people around the cabinet table, how many of them have got any private sector experience other than the legal profession? It's virtually zero.
And even those with experience in the legal profession would appear to have either been working for the CPS.
Or the CPS. Yeah, exactly. Or the sort of charitable sector.
Exactly, which is not the same thing at all.
So, it's a very, very bleak state of affairs. Isn't Wes Streeting the only one with any private sector experience? And, I'm not a massive fan of Wes Streeting, but he's probably the one who comes closest to being willing to compromise with some degree of common sense.
You might say that, but that's a terrible low bar, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a low bar.
Els Bell says, when the government says we have increased wages, etc., can we just get it right? They don't pay it. The employer does. We pay for the public sector wage increase. It's all our money. Well, I have this argument with people all the time. They can't generate money out of nothing. They can only generate it out of the taxes that we pay in the private sector.
The government has no money of its own. It's all taxpayers' money. If something spent on some government scheme, even if it's one you like, paying nurses more money, for example, some infrastructure project you might be in favour of, whatever it is, bear in mind, it's not just, there is no magic money tree. This is taking money from the private productive sector in order to achieve that goal. So there's a trade-off. There are going to be losers because they're being made to pay for it. And we have just choked off our private sector. And, I'm afraid that the position we're in now is unsustainable. We cannot keep spending money like this because the tax base is just not big enough. We've squeezed more out of it than we've squeezed this orange to death. And we're now trying to squeeze stuff out of the orange peel. Well, that is not going to work, right?
No.
You can only get so much juice out of an orange, and they're just determined to squeeze it tighter and tighter. And that means people are leaving the country, they're retiring early, they're less likely to strive for promotion. All of those sort of metrics are in the wrong direction. So we've got to completely, to use their phrase, turn a corner, which means actually starting to encourage the private sector and making sure we get spending in the public sector under some sort of control.
That would be nice. Victoria says, agree. Productivity improves, pay increases, private rates are competitive, not based on huge infatuation costs. I was even mean inflation costs. Infatuation costs. That's something else. When you get infatuated with something, it can get a bit expensive, it's got to be said. We've also got people saying, listening in Australia. Thank you very much indeed for that. And many of you have got lots to say. Mark Littlewood talks so much sense, says Monkspool. Morning, when the government say we have increased wages, etc., can we just get it right? Els Bell says, they don't pay it. We do. Absolutely right. Lots going on today. We're going to be talking to Harry Miller coming up very shortly. Ralph Schulhammer is going to join us too. Plus, we've got a great after show today with Alan Duncan, who's an investigative journalist who's been out to see Shamima Begum a few times, interviewed her. He's been out to the Yazidi camps as well in Syria. We're going to find out exactly what he predicts will happen this year, because there are plenty of people inside of Labour who think Shamima should be returning to the UK. We'll take your views on all of that, plus what's happening in Iran, of course, as well. On the front page this morning, a picture of a terribly sad young woman called Rubina Arminian, 23, a fashion student who was shot by Iranian authorities from the IGRC in the back of the head. Death squads basically roaming the streets, killing hundreds of people. And strangely enough, the pro-Palestinian lot don't seem to care. Mark Littlewood, thank you very much indeed for popping in. Great to see you.
My pleasure.
And thank you for giving us a little bump up the other day on popular conservatism. It's a great place to go and check out some very interesting economic ideas. This government hasn't, of course, got a clue. We'll be back after this. Welcome back to the Mike Graham Show. We are here, of course, every single weekday morning from 7 till 9 a.m. We are pushing the boundaries of common sense. We are picking up some great comments from all around the world. We've got people listening in Japan, in Australia, in the Middle East, in Dubai, in America, in Thailand. We are literally global, by the way. So do join us and do subscribe and like the channel as well on YouTube, because that would be good. Here's one from Josephine. It says, great show, Mike. Can't stand Susanna Reid, Ed Balls and the others on that show. Susanna said one day she could not see where there was any crime in London. What an idiot. Well, you know, let's talk about crime and let's talk about the solving of crime. Listening on board P&O's Azura at Funchal in Madeira, says Sue. Oh, welcome. And Duncan watching in Taiwan. Great show. Cheers, Duncan. Thank you very much indeed. Send us your super chats, by the way. We'll get those on board even as well. So people listening all around the place. Let's talk to Harry Miller, who is, of course, a very famous former police officer who had freedom of speech one day and then the next day didn't. And then he got it back again. But he's a man that knows a thing or two about the police. The police big time in the news this morning because West Midlands police are being urged to sack Craig Guilford, their chief constable, not least because he lied to a Home Affairs Select Committee. And it would appear that he completely and utterly was a derelict, had derelict duty to the people of Birmingham because he sided with a Muslim kind of mob, if you like, to ban Israeli fans from coming in. And also Metropolitan Police Chief Sir Mark Rowley saying, crime's down in London. What are you talking about? Harry, very good morning to you. Welcome to the Mike Graham Show.
Yeah, Mike, it's absolutely fantastic to be on. Great to see that you're back on air and kicking ass in the Mike Graham way. I absolutely love it. So it's great to be part of it. I hope I can kick a few asses on your behalf as well, Mike.
Well, I'm hoping you can do that. I'm hoping you can do that for me, because I also want to ask you about Keir Starmer and his ludicrous idea that he wants to ban X. He says because it's going to be a terribly dangerous influence on young people because people are putting him in a bikini. I mean, what's he talking about?
Yeah, well, he's talking about sort of sexualized deep fakes, how concerned he is about over-sexualized deep fakes. Well, he wasn't bothered remotely about sexualized deep fakes when it came to the trans issue, was he? Because the greatest sexualized deep fake that there is a trans woman, a man who puts on a bit of lippy in a dress and says that he's a woman. And then the state is organized and the police are organized to support that lie. So, you know, I think he's come to the party a little bit too late. He says he's concerned about children. Well, he wasn't concerned about children when the whole puberty blockers thing was being pushed on kids, where kids were being told as young as in infant school that they could choose their gender, and then teachers and parents were being forced at, not quite at gunpoint, but certainly at risk of having a knock on the door and being carted away by the gender police, that we had to support this deep fakery. So this sudden concern for deep fakery all seems a little bit iffy to me, Mike. I don't believe a word of it. No. They're quite happy to deep fakes, providing it fits with their narrative.
Yes, but it all fits around this kind of online safety bill craziness, doesn't it? And how, you know, Keir Starmer's first instinct is not necessarily to protect people, but it is instead to ban people from saying things he doesn't like.
Well, the thing is, Mike, I don't know whether you know this, but I am a victim of the online safety bill. Just over a year ago, 14 months ago, I got a call from my local police force because they said that I'd breached Section 179 of the Online Safety Act, in that I had maliciously spread knowingly false information that had caused somebody deep in non-trivial psychological harm, because I'd written an article for the Critic magazine where I said that a guy who'd stalked me for over a year, well, for a couple of years, a police officer from Leicestershire, I said that I was stalked by a man, not a woman. And the police took me in and said that this was spreading misinformation and was a crime contrary to Section 179 of the Online Safety Act. And you talk about crime statistics, that has now gone as a hate crime with hate markers against my name. Complete and utter rubbish. Complete and utter nonsense.
You'd think they might have learned their lesson, Harry, after having a few dust-ups with you, that it's not a very good idea, because they never seem to come out with anything other than a rather bruised ego, and getting something wrong. But again, you know,
I intend to absolutely whoop their ass. I mean, they have picked entirely on the wrong guy here. They've picked the wrong fight. They couldn't be any wronger. I'll tell you what, Mike. When the detective sergeant rang me back in, I think it was November 2024, and put this to me, I warned him and said, do you know who you're messing with? Have you got your facts correct? Because I am warning you now, if you continue down this route, it is not only going to end very badly for you, Detective Sergeant Singh, it's also going to end up very badly for your Chief Constable, because I will take him all the way to the High Court. And not only will I take him to the High Court, I will take his boss, the Home Secretary, to the High Court as well. And that is precisely what we are doing, Mike. This week, we are lodging with the High Court for a judicial review against the Home Secretary, Shamama Mahmood, and against the Chief Constable of Lincolnshire, because we cannot, we will not, we must not put up with these out-of-control police officers who are following ridiculous Home Office guidance that places the victim first and center, the perception of the victim, because that's what the guidance says. It says victims must be believed and the perception of the victim is everything, unless the person who is accused can absolutely prove beyond reasonable doubt that they didn't do it. Everything is on the perception of the victim. So yes, I'm taking the Home Secretary to the High Court. So I'm going to whoop her ass, and I'm taking the Chief Constable of Lincolnshire to the High Court. I'm going to whoop his ass.
Excellent.
So, yeah,
I'm looking forward to that. So I take it that you're not entirely convinced then that the latest sort of missive from the police, which is that they're no longer going to record these non-crime hate incidents. They're just talking absolute BS, aren't they?
Well, no, what they've done, Mike, they're going to get rid of non-crime hate incidents and just record them now as crimes. They've escalated the problem away. That's what they've done. We've shown over a number of years now that non-crime hate incidents are, they're unlawful. Well, in the large part, they are unlawful because they breach Article 10 of our right to freedom of expression. But more than that, they are absolutely useless. They have served no purpose whatsoever. We've had these things foisted upon us since 2014. Last year, I was in the House of Lords, and I had the great opportunity to question the idiot son of an idiot, Lord Herbert, and his even more idiotic sidekick, the head of strategy from the College of Policing. And I said, please tell me, how effective have non-crime hate incidents been since 2014? You've collected somewhere between 150 and 250,000 of these things. How effective have they been in either stopping crime or detecting crime? And they couldn't answer. And I said, well, I'm going to tell you now. The reason that you've detected no crime and prevented no crime is because the police are collecting non-crime hate incidents and doing absolutely zero analysis of them. Absolutely none. They are not linking them with crime. They are not doing them at all. What they're doing, they are serving as a mark of Cain. They're serving as nothing more. They have no more utility than to put somebody on the naughty list and prevent their future employment. That's what they're for. And of course, yet again, I was proved right, and we've got rid of them. But rather than backing off and saying this is a terrible thing, we've done a bad thing, we apologise. No, what they've done, they've escalated. So we've gone from non-crime hate incidents to now just arbitrary crime recording based on the perception of the victim.
Yes. And meanwhile, in the real world of policing, you've got West Midlands Police in crisis. You can see the ticker, the news ticker there saying that. It looks as though finally Craig Guilford, the West Midlands Chief Constable, isn't going to last out the week, because now senior MPs are going to tell Shabana Mahmood, you've got to get rid of this guy. But it turns out that the background to this is that she said she wasn't really told about this, and she didn't really have time to interfere with this decision that was made. It now turns out that she was told, she did know, and she could have urged West Midlands Police to actually, instead of banning Israeli supporters from visiting Birmingham, making sure that they, one, could visit, and two, could be safely protected from Muslim gangs.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna reserve judgment on Shabana Mahmood at the moment. I think she's basically a pretty decent Home Secretary. I mean, that's a very low bar, unfortunately, but I don't think she's too bad, and I think she has been playing the game of trying not to have the government interfere in operational decisions made by the chief constable. So I'm going to give her a pass on that just at the moment. Who I do not give a pass to at all is Craig Guildford. I mean, this is a case of deciding what the answer was and then looking for the evidence. And they've just cooked up evidence all over the place. They've been to Holland and cooked up evidence there. They've misrepresented what happened in Holland when the Maccabi fans were over there. And on top of that, they've reversed the threat. They've said that the threat was from the Israeli fans when they knew full well that the actual threat was from the Asian gangs knocking around in Birmingham who were all tooled up and who were intent on going and kicking 7 bells out of the Israeli fans. They've reversed the victim order. That's what they've done. And why have they done that? Well, I think we have to look no further than who actually employed this chief constable. It turns out that on the interview panel was one of the mad mullahs from the Green Lane Mosque. And this is the guy who's supposed to be a bit of a moderate, but he's that moderate. He thinks that women shouldn't be allowed out unless their husband specifically allows them to. And if they do go out, then a little bit of home violence is absolutely fine. This is the kind of person that Craig Guildford was employed by. And this is the kind of person, the kind of lunatic that Craig Guildford goes and takes advice from. It's a little bit like going and asking the Ku Klux Klan whether or not they should allow the black guys into town. It's completely and utterly insane. These lunatic mullahs should have no influence upon policing whatsoever. In this case, they clearly have, and it is entirely wrong. And for that basis alone, Guildford has to go.
Yeah, and I wonder though whether for that basis alone he won't go, because you also have to wonder how much of that is going on in other parts of the UK, in other parts of Britain where Muslim communities are not just fairly large, but are also very influential politically in the local councils, and now it would appear in the local police units.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Well, we'll have to look no further than West Yorkshire, Mike. I mean, that is the prime example of a police force which is completely and utterly captured by the Islamist lobby. We've got a grammar school teacher from Batley who has been in hiding now for 5 years because West Yorkshire police couldn't protect him from the death threats. We've got the obscene situation where a 14-year-old autistic boy dropped his own copy of the Quran on the floor, and he was dragged with his parents into a mosque where the local mullah sat with a senior police officer, and they berated the mother and they berated the boy in order to try and appease the Muslims so that they wouldn't attack this young boy. It's completely and utterly insane. But that's not the only place, is it? In Stafford, when there was a march of Asians, I think it was following the summer of protests last year following the Southport riots, the Southport killings, a community liaison officer stood in front of a bunch of Muslims and pleaded with them to leave their weapons at the mosque. I mean, can you imagine what would happen that happening at a rally held by Tommy Robinson? Can you imagine a liaison officer saying, "Look, lads, we know you've got weapons. Please leave them at Wetherspoons. You can collect them later." I mean, it just would not happen. It wouldn't happen. So the police understand that Islam poses a problem. They understand that Islamists are tooled up. And rather than stopping them, rather than arresting them, rather than confiscating the weapons, rather than throwing them into prison, they kowtow to them, they service them, they align with them, they ally with them, and they do their bidding. And that's what's happened here. I saw the obscene pictures just from this weekend, where a bunch of pro-Palestine, anti-Israel people were standing outside a restaurant in Notting Hill. chanting from the river to the sea and shouting, declaring that Zionists were not welcome in Notting Hill. And a whole contingent of police officers were stood there like lemons, just nodding away, doing absolutely nothing, as raging anti-Semitism, the calls for genocide were being heard on our streets. They stood there and did absolutely nothing. At one point, I thought they were going to start cheering because that's what they look like. They're entirely in favour of this kind of nonsense.
It is absolutely incredible. This is great to have you on, Harry. Loads of people have been very complimentary as well. They want me to get you on regularly, so I hope we can do that because you talk an awful lot of sense and you cover so much ground. One final one for you, because a lot of people have this as a debate all over the place. You know, what is the conversation currently going on in London about crime? We've got Sir Mark Rowley. I'm going to call him the beleaguered Chief Constable of the Metropolitan Police, continually sort of, along with Sadiq Khan, trying to convince everyone here that London's safer than it's ever been. You know, the likes of John Simpson, the old codger from the BBC, basically going on about how, you know, knife crime's down, you know, homicide is down. Apparently only 97 people were murdered last year instead of 109 in 2024. I mean, you know, at the end of the day, everybody who lives in London knows that, you know, low-level crime, whatever you might call it, petty crime, but also violent crime is up, shoplifting is up, you know, burglary's up, sexual assault is up. But yet, if you're on the left in this country, you're always trying to convince us that that's not true.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right, Mike. I mean, you hit the nail on the head earlier when you say that they talk about percentages rather than actual numbers. And your other guest was also right that that perception actually does count, but you don't feel safe at all walking through London. Part of the problem there is that the police are very, very reluctant to record what they would consider to be low-level crime, what you and I would consider to be not low-level crime at all. They're reluctant to record it. So what they will do is they will pass it off as just an incident, a non-crime hate incident, something that it's not worth not worth logging, etc. There's a myriad ways in which they can mask the figures. But the fact of the matter is, your perception and my perception, and it's not a false perception, is that London is a dangerous place. And it is a dangerous place. Muggings are up. Low-level theft is up. Shoplifting is up. Now, we've had previous governments, not just this government, but previous governments, Conservative governments, who've tried to suggest that a shoplifting isn't worth bothering with if the value of goods was less than £200. Well, I'm sorry, but if you're a little old shopkeeper, then 200 quid represents possibly your profit for the entire week. What are you working for? What are you working for? And this is the problem. They are not giving any form of credence to the things that you and I, as reasonable, ordinary members of the public, consider to be important. They think that crime is, you know, armed robbery. They think that crime is stabbing, a murder, or whatever. You and I know that crime is having our phone nicked, not feeling safe, being intimidated whilst we're on the street, having our shed burgled, having our shop shoplifted. This is what crime is. Until we redefine that and say that these things are actually important, we're going to continue to have a failing police force. And of course, we have a failing police force because they are far too busy engaging in diversity, inclusion, and equality nonsense. I mean, I'll finish on this, Mike. From the National Police Chief Council, okay, they've said this, that the job of the police is to position diversity, equality, and inclusion at the heart of policing and integral to all policies, practices, and procedures. And it gets worse. Rachel Keaton, the Chief Constable of Suffolk, has said, get this, we are bringing religion to everyday policing. We are bringing what? What?
Why?
Why do we want religion at the heart of policing?
Yeah, but hang on.
Absolutely crazy.
But it won't be Christianity, though, will it? It's not like we're going to bring Catholicism and the Stations of the Cross, you know, to the high street. We're not going to be doing confirmations in open air beaches around the country. We're not going to be giving children their first communion, are we? It's not that kind of religion, is it?
These aren't the catechism police, Mike. This is yet again kowtowing to the lunatic Islamists. But you know what? I'm a Christian, Mike. I don't want Christianity centered in policing. I want the law to be central to policing, the upholding of the law. I don't want you to police on my behalf as a Christian. I want you to police on behalf of the Crown and uphold the law. It's quite simple, Mike, really, don't you think?
I would have thought so. Harry, brilliant. Great to see you. I'm going to say Happy New Year because you've really cheered me up. It's fantastic to have you on. We'll have you on again very soon. Harry, brilliant man. Harry Miller. Cry good for Harry, England and St. George, says the minute to midnight. This is the Mike Graham Show. So much going on today. We've got so many stories to talk about. Coming up, I'm going to tell you some more about the great showbiz line in The Sun this morning, where it says Marlon Brando might well be the father of one of Michael Jackson's children. For heaven's sake, the headline says The Odd Father. And I couldn't agree more. This is, of course, the home of common sense. It's the only place to be. Do like our channel, please, on YouTube. Do subscribe to it. We're trying to get those subscriber numbers up. Loads and loads of you watching this morning, which I'm pretty pleased to see. Just sent His Majesty the King a link to the show. Says Newsmonger. Brilliant. Absolutely right. And believe it or not, we've had some people complaining about the change of colour on the sign behind me to blue. Apparently, some people say the Duke of Kingdom says this. Mike, great show, but can you change the colour of the sign back to nice warm orange, which is much more comfortable on a morning? Well, I rather like the blue, to be honest, but I'll take your views on it. We can change it to all sorts of things. In fact, if I do that, there you go. You can have a green one. You can have a blue one. What else can you do? We can go all the way around the houses. But I think the blue is the winner. Where has it gone? I can't get it back now. Oh, there we go. The Mike Graham Show in blue. I think that's far better than anything else I've ever seen. Keep your thoughts coming. Do send them in on our YouTube channel. You can comment there. You can do super chats, of course, as well. You can also find us on Facebook. You can find us on X as well before Keir Starmer shuts it down. That's at IROMG. And of course, you can watch our reels on Instagram. We're on TikTok as well. We did some great numbers last week. We're delighted to say that you're all finding it very, very popular. We've been mentioning get your kids off the smartphones. We've been mentioning the European Union as well. We'll talk to Ralph Schulhammer coming up in a little while. And of course, we have got a massive, massive after show for you every single day after 9 o'clock. Today, with the very, very well-renowned and well-respected investigative journalist, Alan Duncan. He's a man who's been out into the camps, the refugee camps of Syria, the refugee camps of southern Iraq as well. He's interviewed Shamima Begum. He's going to bring us the latest from that part of the world as to whether she is going to find her way back to this country, rightly or wrongly. I don't think she should. And also, we'll get the latest from him as well on the Yazidi problem, which of course is something which is not given very much publicity, but is just as bad as a human rights atrocity as is going on in Iran. And we'll keep you updated on Iran as well. It was on the front pages this morning. Lots and lots of pictures of a young woman by the name of Rabina Armenian, 23, a fashion student. That's her picture there. You can see on the front of the Times, the Telegraph and the Mail, shot in the back of the head by Iranian thugs, basically, the IRGC, who are still not a prescribed organisation by Keir Starmer, who of course has gone very quiet. He doesn't even put anything out on X now because he wants to shut it down. The clocks are there. It's 8:42. We'll be back after this. Welcome back to the Mike Graham Show, the home of common sense. Here's one from Jim. When they sacked No Dick Priti Patel, reviewed the candidates to replace her, I think you mean Cressida Dick, she was astounded by their poor quality. So Mark Rowley was brought out of retirement as the least worst choice, it says here. Here's one from Alan who says, Harry Miller, inspirational. Absolutely right. Ruth says, whatever colour you like, Mike. Yeah, indeed. Margaret says, good start to the week. Nice to see you, Mike. And Robert says, Mike's mojo is back. The level and quality of speech is back to the old job days. Well done. Onwards and upwards. Mr. Patron, I agree. The orange is softer for the show. Great show, Mike. Keep it going. Blue was good with Mike's suit. He's changed it quickly and doesn't realise that it's now purple. Is it the wrong colour? Oh, yeah, it is. Oh, so it is. It's gone purple. How did that happen? Yeah, let's do this. Is that blue? Is that back to blue? I don't know. Yeah, look, don't put me in charge of anything. Here we go. It's now green. What am I doing? Why won't it change? There we go. Let's try that. Well, I'm pressing the blue, right? But it's not turning blue. I don't know. Oh, there it was. That's blue, isn't it? Is that blue? Yeah, we got it back. Yes. I can do it. I can be trained. As an atheist, says Katrina, I'm puzzled why humans can't live without worshipping something there is no real proof of, and which I have always thought was devised to make humans, putting the fear of God in them. Yeah, well, I mean, we just heard from Harry Miller there, a former police officer, who says that, in some constabularies now up and down the country, they actually want to bring religion into policing. Well, why would you want to do that? It's absolute and utter madness. The main story today, there's a heron. The heron's appeared. Anybody seen a heron, do let us know. We had a couple of spottings last week. My daughter saw one in Dubai. We had another viewer who had one in the Seychelles. Mine hasn't been back for a few weeks, so I'm looking forward to seeing him the next time. I think you're colourblind, Mike, says Jane. Orange is best. A nice warm colour. I don't know about that. Bridget says, I like the green light. Good morning, Mike. Great show. You've got listeners in all parts of the world. Sorry to soak your fireworks. We also have one in Bridgewater. Well, listen, I'm not proud. I will take them from anywhere that I can, because that, my friends, is exactly what we do here. What has formerly been known as the Independent Republic of Mike Graham, which has been known as Morning Glory, it's now just known as the Mike Graham Show. Daystate Fox says, I'm watching this from my new home in Spain, thinking I made the right move leaving London after 55 years. I think so. You will be right. Let's have a look, though, at what I think is one of the stories of the day. And I'm really, really happy about it because it's so weird that it has to be read out in full. Brando is the father of Jacko Kid. It's a world exclusive in the front page of The Sun by Clemmy Moody, a woman I know well. Says here, Michael Jackson's youngest child may have been fathered by Hollywood giant Marlon Brando, it has been claimed. Sources said he donated sperm to his close pal Jacko, and the son, Blanket, was born via surrogate in 2002. Full story pages 14 and 15. Then they've got a great headline. They were both megastars, very close friends. A handful of people have always known Marlon helped Michael. And then the big headline is The Odd Father. Imagine being the son of Marlon Brando, born to a surrogate woman and technically being fathered by Michael Jackson. I mean, that would be weird, wouldn't it? Anyway, we'll talk some more about that. I'll buy a mug, says Vorlander, 69. I hope that's not Carol Vorderman, because you can't have, if it is Carol Vorderman, you can't have one. Simple as that. Let's talk now to Ralph Schulhammer, who's one of our great friends here at the new home of Common Sense. And Ralph, it's very good to see you. Very good morning to you. Welcome back.
Mike, so good to be back on again. Congratulations to your new endeavor. I think
Thank
it's
you.
received
Thank you
very
very
well,
much
as you
indeed.
deserve.
Yeah, it's going really well. We're crossing all sorts of boundaries. We're sort of approaching subjects that nobody else wants to talk about properly. I want to talk to you a little bit about the European Union, because we've got a state of affairs now in this country where Keir Starmer, the hapless Prime Minister of this sceptred isle of ours, wants to have ever closer alignment with the European Union, even though as a country we voted to leave it. There's all sorts of jiggery-pokery going on now, because the EU are saying that if we do have closer alignment, they want to have what they're calling a Farage clause, right, which will make it impossible to reverse any closer alignment if, in fact, Nigel Farage wins the next election in 2027 or 29, whenever it is, or even if the Tories get in. I mean, this is what I call gangster politics. What do you think?
No, this is like the old joke coming true, that in order to defend democracy, we have to abolish democracy. I mean, Great Britain, under the scenario you just described, which is accurate, is basically applying to become a colony of Brussels, because this is nothing else. I mean, imagine the scenario. So you say, oh, we can do closer alignment, but this means that whomever the British people vote into office down the road, they can never change it. So if there would be a new Brexit referendum, since the real Brexit never happened, it wouldn't have an effect, because there is the Farage clause or the no Brexit clause. It is an absurd scenario, and it proves once again, I think, that Keir Starmer truly would prefer to be in Brussels or Davos than in Westminster. I mean, it's very hard to deny the quite obvious.
Exactly right. But I mean, the European Union, by any metric, is losing power, right? If you look around what's happening in different individual countries of the EU, they are, at the very least, regaining their personalities. They're moving further away from the super state. They're moving further away from, all being on the same hymn sheet. They want to, emphasize their individuality. It's happening in Germany, in Italy, in France, in Spain. I don't think anyone wants to really be part of that giant machine anymore. So why on earth would Britain want to do?
Well, again, this is a question I've tried to wrap my head around. But one has to also admit the EU is becoming a little bit like a cornered beast, right? It's threatened, so it starts to lash out. You have now these debates in which Keir Starmer is also involved, whether or not there should be a soft ban or hard ban on X or Twitter, or whether social media shouldn't be regulated, who can run for elections. I mean, I was somewhat amused when Europeans constantly complain about Americans commenting on European politics, and that in fact, democracy is so much greater in Europe than it's over there. Maybe it is, but people tend to completely forget there were elections in Romania. There are attempts to hinder Nigel Farage and Reform Party from gaining office, whether it's on mayoral terms or on more federal terms in the UK. There is attempts to ban the AfD in Germany. I mean, we've talked about this plenty of times, but a threatened beast, is a dangerous thing, and I think this is also true for the European Union.
Yeah, absolutely right. You put out an interesting tweet yesterday as well on the subject of the sort of the European state, if you like, or the European continent. You basically said Europeans are becoming an endangered species. Forget about Greenland, forget about Venezuela, or as we now have to pronounce it, Venezuela. Because that's the way everybody pronounces it now in the media. This is the only thing that matters for Europe. 100 Poles will only have 20 great-grandchildren, 100 Austrians will only have 29, 100 Italians will only have 22. Is that a trend, or has it always been like that?
No, I mean, what we experience, I mean, it's also happening in South Korea, it's also happening in Japan, but I'm a European, so I care mostly about Europe. And what we are experiencing is the self-extinction of the very nations that built the modern world. And I think that's a tragedy. I think the world will be a sadder place without Austrians, without English, without the French, without the Italians. And the problem is, of course, that as your own population declines, at least in continental Europe, but also the UK, a successor population is already in place, so it's gradually coming into place, if you will. I mean, I observed quite remarkably, if you look at the upcoming mayoral elections in London, and whatever you think about the Reform candidate, it seems to be quite obvious that apparently if you want to become mayor of London these days, you have to be a Muslim. Now, as I always say, you can say this is good, you can say this is bad, but it's obviously not nothing. And this kind of rapid social cultural transformation is something that worries me. I think it worries a growing number of the people in the UK. And once again, right, I think that Laila is a great candidate. I'm sure she's a wonderful person, but it would be very odd that the very city that was the epitome of Western civilization, namely London, in order to become mayor of that city, you basically have to be a Muslim. I think that's an astounding change that one should at least be curious about.
Well, there's one thing that I want to show you here, which actually will make you perhaps sit up and take notice. You may be seeing this in Europe as well. But this is a tweet put out by Nick Buckley a little bit earlier on, over the weekend. And it's about a sign that has started to appear in cities up and down the nation. And I think we can have a look at it.
Following the protesting that is taking place all over the country of Iran now.
I'm following it very closely.
And have you read that the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei
notice? Now, forgive me for pointing this out, but I mean, I don't think anyone in this country needed to be told that.
I think the same is true, and this is one aspect, but of course something we also talked about on many occasions is the phenomenon of grooming gangs in the UK, of gang rapes in Germany. I mean, you have on average, that's the data from 2024, you have 2 gang rapes per day in Germany. I mean, this is a criminal category that to that extent did not even exist in the German criminal code because it was seen as completely outlandish. The point is, a country is not just its laws, it's people. I mean, we run the experiment. I mean, we've been for 20 years in Afghanistan, we've been in Iraq, we've been to all these places. And if it would be as simple as just implementing, British common law or the US Constitution, and then everybody would turn into Brits or Americans, we would have done it, but that's not how it works. There was a recent tweet, I think I mentioned it before in your show, but it's worthwhile repeating. If you look at the Constitution of Liberia, on paper, it's an incredible constitution. But if you look what's actually happening in Liberia, where I think like one new president at some point ate the ears of his predecessor or something like that, it's not working like that. At the end of the day, it's the people. There is no such thing as a magic soil or a magic document that turns people from Somalia into the people who came off the Mayflower a couple of centuries ago. I mean, we see this also in the United States. We see it in Vienna, by the way, where we have a similar scandal with Islamist kindergartens, very comparable to what's happening in Minnesota at the moment. It's the people, it's not the magic soil, and values are not just like a hat. There's this odd idea that somebody wears his Islamist hat and then he comes to England and he turns on his Western civilization hat. This is not how it works.
Interestingly enough, you've got so many people in the established sort of political centre who are willing to bankroll all of it, So if you do turn up in Minneapolis and you are running a Somalian nursery and you do want to apply for a grant, you will get the money. Because everyone is too frightened not to give it to you. And then suddenly it becomes this balloon of fraud. And suddenly now people are talking about it and it's happening all over the place. I mean, there's a story in the Telegraph today about the whole business of Islamophobia, another crazy idea, crazy notion that this government's trying to, define Islamophobia so that, it might be against the law now to sort of criticize somebody who's Islamic or somebody who's got a copy of the Quran. But apparently they now are possibly likely to be discriminating against other faith groups. So it could be actually illegal to even bring in a law against Islamophobia. And they're tying themselves up in knots over this stuff.
Now listen, Mike. I'm sure you've seen this headline that the United Arab Emirates are now curtailing stipends for their students who want to go to the UK and study there, because the Emiratis are afraid that they will get radicalized into radical Islam in the UK and then bring that ideology back to the United Arab Emirates. So apparently the Arabs are more Islamophobic than the Brits. And this makes complete sense, right? I mean, there is a bigger issue of Islamism at university campuses in Europe than there is at university campuses, in, for example, the Gulf states. And, if they can be terrified of Islamism, then why can't we be? So nobody would excuse, the Emir of Qatar of being Islamophobic. But even they understand the danger, so they export it. I mean, one has to grant them that they're much smarter than we are.
Exactly right. And, as I say, as we see now from the reaction to what's happening in Iran, there's certain kinds of Islamism which is sort of somehow superior to other kinds of Islamism. And the kind of sympathy, for example, for the Palestinian cause does not seem to expand to the Iranian people's cause, because the same people who want to see a free Palestine apparently want to see the continuation of the Islamic Republic run by mullahs who like shooting young women in the back of the head.
Well, listen, I mean, there's one thing that the Iranian protesters supposedly were chanting, which very much spoke to me, which is when they claimed, justifiably so, that Iran should focus on the Iranian people and not on Hezbollah and not Hamas and not the Palestinians. And this is exactly the same thing I would also demand from our leaders. I mean, look at the contemporary political debate in Europe and the UK. It seems that they care about everything and everybody in the world except their own people. So I'm with the Iranians on that. I think that my state, my government, my country should primarily care about me. And by the way, of course, in the UK, it should be about you. I mean, this is so terribly annoying that the very obvious has to be repeated time and time and time again, that the European states, the states in the West, have to learn to be there for their own people and not for anybody else.
Yeah. I mean, do you think this year is going to change that in any way, shape or form? What do you see happening?
Well, I think 2026 is going to be a very, very interesting year, because as we mentioned at the beginning of our conversation, I think that the authoritarian tendencies within the European Union, but also within the UK, they're going to be switched into hypergear. I mean, I think we will experience and see a crackdown on freedom of speech and freedom of opinion that we have never seen before. But there will be a new wrinkle to this, because the United States are not run by Hillary Clinton. They are not run by Kamala Harris. They are run by Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. And so there will be support for people like you, like me, like the British people, the continental Europeans who want free speech and who want political change. I can just recommend to anybody to read the national security strategy that came out of the White House in December. They make very clear they see Europe's civilizational erasure, and I think that is fair to say that this is happening, as a threat to the interests of the United States. I mean, it is absurd, Mike. We discuss the ownership of Greenland. I don't care about Greenland if I'm losing valuable territory in Vienna, in Copenhagen, in Paris, and in London. So if the Americans go to Greenland, or the Americanization of Greenland is a lesser threat to me than the Islamization of our capital cities. So how about if we get our priorities right?
Yeah, maybe we can all move to Greenland if America takes it over. It might actually be a better place to live. We shall see. Ralph Schulhammer, great to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks,
Ralph
Mike.
Schulhammer there, talking perfect sense. We'll do some super chats in a moment. Ralph is great, says Ralphie. He's another one, of course. Cindy says the government is trying to scare the people into compliance. Benita says, fantastic show today, Mike. Great guest. Congratulations. Mike, good morning. Get a grandfather clock, says John. Yeah, well, I could try that. Olivia's also said there's a reflection on the clock. Maybe what you should do is take the glass out of it. Well, we could try that. I don't know. Or maybe we could paint over the bottom of it. I don't know. We'll see. Super chat from Lou. Henry is your best guest so far. Have him back. I think you mean Harry Miller, I'm assuming. Super chat from Laura Jane. The whole gender thing makes me sick and angry. You cannot change sex. Pushing and encouraging puberty blockers into children is abuse. We've also got, of course, the brilliant J.K. Rowling talking about that as well. Mark says The Odd Father could be, but Marlon Brando died in 2000 and Blanket was born in 2002. Yeah, I know, but on the wrong side of the blanket, very possibly. But it is possible, isn't it, to donate sperm, which is then stored and used later. I mean, it's not out of the blue. You see what I did there? Blue. It's not out of the blue that could have happened, but it's a fascinating story. I mean, I think life would be hard enough if you go through it being called Blanket, to be honest. If you then find out that Marlon Brando was your dad, I mean, I don't know what you would do. It's quite an extraordinary set of affairs. We've got time to play one last clip just before we go. This is Donald Trump, if we can do it. This was on Air Force One when he was on the plane last night, and somebody tried to ask him a question and pretend that they weren't from CNN.
Don, are you meeting with senior officials?
Are you asking me to say what will they do, where will we attack, when, and at what angle will we attack from?
Are you considering I'm with the U.S. White House TV pool. I'm wondering, are you being briefed on options? I'm with CNN, sir.
Why don't you just say I'm with CNN? She says I'm with the White House pool. Yes. And I say, what? You're with CNN. You're with fake news. Because CNN is fake news. Go ahead, give me a...
And there it is. What a way to finish the show. Donald Trump, what a great president, what a great guy. He's absolutely ruling the world right now. So much so that even the human rights people in Iran are saying, thank God for Donald Trump, because he might finally be the US president that gets rid of these ghastly, murderous mullahs, because that's what everybody thinks should happen. There's no question about it. Thanks to all of you for joining us. That has been the Mike Graham Show. We'll be back at 7 a.m. tomorrow, of course, and every single weekday. And of course, don't worry, because we haven't quite finished. There's going to be an after show coming, and it's going to be all about the Middle East. Alan Duncan is going to join us, investigative journalist. He'll talk to us about Shamima Begum and what's happening in Iran. Also, of course, remember, despite the fact that there's an awful lot of it about, don't be a plank.